Here we go. All right. Oh, that number just is climbing up. Hi, everyone. Perfect. Let's let some people in here. Wow, that's incredible. Are you guys seeing this? Like,
yeah,
just go? Okay.
Watching it climb up.
Very cool.
It's like they had to open up the doors and let people in.
Right, right, right. Thanks, Davin. Come on in, everyone. Come on in. Ah, there we go. Hi, Maria. Okay, so we're good. Can't say much if I'm muted. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to season a Fireside Chat with Black Cyber OGs. This is a three-part series, and we're just getting started on our part one. I am Najla Lindsay. I am also known as Fireside_Q on Twitter. So a lot of you may follow me on there. And I just want to thank everyone for attending. And I definitely am gracious to my panelists for allowing me to host this event for them and with them so that they can share their knowledge and their expertise. So before we get started, I have a couple of, quick announcements. And, then we'll get right into what it is we want to discuss. Hi, Izzy. Hi, Kiana. So first off, I just want to have a disclaimer that all the participants and the panelists are here on their own free will. No exchange of services or goods happened. These individuals all volunteered to participate. And so I want to make it crystal clear that they don't speak on behalf of myself or my company, Lindsay Forensic Security Consulting, LLC. Everything that you hear here is from their perspective, their words. And I just want to make sure that we get that settled. Also, I'm not sure, I've seen some media here. I didn't, the panel is open to anyone to attend, but I just want to be crystal clear that if you would like to use any of the panelists' quotes or words, that you make sure you reach out to them directly. We don't want to put anyone in jeopardy of, losing their livelihood. Everyone has a livelihood to protect, so be respectful and make sure that if you would like to use any of what they say in a media article or something that will be published, make sure you reach out to the attendees, to the panelists. Please mute yourself. And yeah, so without further ado, we're gonna introduce our panelists here. I actually liked Octavia's popcorn method that we did a little bit a while ago, so we'll start with that. I'm gonna start with Cedric. Everyone will introduce themselves, give a little bit of background, whatever you choose to share. And you got 2 minutes, Cedric. You can do shorter, no pressure.
Awesome, sounds good. Thanks everyone for attending. Very excited to be here. But I'm Cedric Owens. I've been in the security industry full-time now for 16 years. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, on the south side of Greensboro. Currently in Austin, and I'm the red team lead at a company called Twilio currently, and I've been in the red team space now for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was an incident responder doing threat detection, hunting, and then prior to that, I've kind of hopped around doing policy work, certification and accreditation on the government and intelligence community side, and just kind of meandering my way through until eventually I knew I wanted to be an incident responder and do red team. So I've kind of been navigating my way through that over the years, and I'm thankful to be in that place now. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself. I guess next I'll kick it over to Dondi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dondi West. I'm a cybersecurity attorney at Microsoft, where I've been for just over a year. Before that, I ran a private law practice, and my work mainly consisted of, working in the intelligence analysis field, in particular cyber intelligence. So I worked at my first job out of the government space was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I worked on their global threat intelligence team. And prior to that, I was at U.S. Cyber Command, mainly focused on Russian cyber actors. Coincidentally, Chris, who you guys are here from, who's also on the call, we worked at Cyber Command at the same time, and he was my counterpart. But if my memory serves me correctly, he was working Iran. The way that we got into that work, the way that I got into that work is that straight out of college, I got recruited by the Navy as a Navy Information Warfare Officer. So unlike most people in the Navy, I spent most of my time working with civilians at intelligence agencies, mainly at Fort Meade. So worked as an information warfare officer, and then basically went into government contracting doing the same thing. My undergrad degree is from Alabama A&M University in mathematics. I have a master's in applied information technology and a law degree from the University of Maryland. Looking forward to chatting with everybody today. And since I mentioned him, I'll kick it to Chris.
How's it going, everyone? Chris Cochran. I really got into technology and science when I was a little kid, taking apart computers, figuring out how they work and all that. But my career really started in the United States Marine Corps. I was at the National Security Agency for about 5 years. I was at United States Cyber Command with Dondi for about 5 years. I had my own company. I kind of went the consulting route for a little bit. I was at Mandiant, Booz Allen Hamilton, and before where I'm at today, I was at Netflix leading threat intelligence for the company. And now I'm at a company called Marqeta, and that's a financial technology company, and I'm the director of security engineering. And but more importantly, I'm actually a co-host for a pretty popular podcast, Hacker Valley Studio. Definitely check it out. We cover the human element of cybersecurity. So we talk about everything from leadership to vulnerability, and not vulnerability management, but like actual vulnerability as people. Representation, we talk about everything across the board. But excited to be here and can't wait to hear from all these brilliant people. And I'm gonna popcorn Tia.
You did that because I like your microphone.
I did.
When you said podcast, I was like, oh, it all makes so much sense. So I'm Tia Hopkins. I've been in IT for about 20 years. I'd say interested in cybersecurity for about 15, but really, really focused on it for the last 10. I started my career actually as a high-speed internet installer for the phone company. So I was climbing poles, pulling cables, got interested in networking. That led into a network systems administrator role, which led me eventually to an IT director role. And then I pivoted into cybersecurity, where I started as a systems engineer, which was a post-sales deployment engineer. and then moved into technical pre-sales, which I think is a bit of an underrepresented role in cybersecurity. And I've been doing that for like the last 4 or 5 years. In terms of my background, I have a bachelor's degree in information technology. I have a master's degree in information security and assurance, and a second master's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance, industry certifications, et cetera. Today, I am the Global Vice President of Solutions Engineering at eCentire, which is an organization that provides managed detection and response services, which is like threat hunting as a service, sort of an evolution of managed security services. I'm also an adjunct professor at Yeshiva University. I teach the network security and communications course as part of their master's in cybersecurity program. And I'm also chair of the board for the Black Cybersecurity Association, which is focused on just raising awareness and providing opportunity to underrepresented minorities, but specifically Blacks in the cybersecurity space. And just looking forward to the discussion today, however I can help, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot as well. So really excited to be here. And I will kick it to Octavia.
I actually knew you was gonna kick it to me. I kind of had a feeling that was gonna happen. Hello, everyone. I am Octavia Howell. I am a information security officer at Equifax. I'm also the founder of Augustus Redefined, which is an organization that helps amplify and elevate Black women in cybersecurity into leadership. I've been in cybersecurity, well, actually been in security for about 14 years. I started at a mortgage company straight out of college. I graduated from Spelman College with a computer science and mathematics degree. And I actually went over from the mortgage industry, really started into network security, then moved over to an insurance company where I actually led the network and security team, as well as beginning of their cloud security journey. Currently, as I said, I'm founder of Augustus Redefined. I was just announced the marketing chair for BOLD at Equifax, which is our Black employee network. BOLD stands for Black Organization for Leveraging Differences. And I'm also the founding board member of an organization in Atlanta called Passport Atlanta, which is actually a great nonprofit to actually expose youth and underestimated youth to landmarks and give them exposure to things that they probably would not have previously had exposure to. I'm going to popcorn it over to Wayne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wayne Howell. Just a little bit of my background. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, West Side, Park Heights to be exact. I went to Bowie State University, where I graduated with a bachelor's in computer technology. I'm also a part of the external advisory board for Bowie State that's really driving what the curriculum should look like as it meets current industry standards. Currently what I do today is I'm a cybersecurity process and governance leader for a strategic business unit within Honeywell. I also serve as the Atlanta Honeywell Black Employee Network Chair. That's really bringing in, how do we, mature people and develop Black employees throughout their engagement through Honeywell. I'm also VP of Technology at Music Head Media and Marketing, where we focus on urban contemporary music. We have a channel station for that. I'm also Vice President for So Good Project Incorporated, where we focus on doing good deeds in communities and good deeds in the community. And mainly, that's pretty much my background. Oh yes, I've been in cybersecurity for about a good 12, 13 years. Doing various things from software engineering, network security, penetration testing, the whole 9 yards, risk assessments, everything. Oh, and now I'll kick it over to Paul.
Hey, I wanted to say hello to everyone. So my name is Paul Brager. I've been at this before cybersecurity was cybersecurity. It was actually a lot more system administration around VAXes and mainframes and that kind of thing. Of course, was able to watch the internet be turned on and all the challenges that came therein. So that dates me almost 30 years of doing this. Probably about 20 to 25 of it has been industrial. So critical infrastructures, pharmaceuticals, automotive, electrical, as far as like power utilities, oil and gas refineries, those types of things. where, and of course, I'm operating in a space where there's very few of me, if any of me, in many cases. Graduated from Texas A&M with a bachelor's degree, political science, minor in business, and have a master's degree basically in public policy. Currently I work for Baker Hughes as the director of OT security programs, which basically means that I'm responsible for the cybersecurity footprint and strategy for all of their manufacturing ecosystem globally, which is about 280 sites in 120 countries. Certainly, looking forward to hearing, the rest of kind of the generation of people here on the panel, and certainly being able to provide whatever information I can to try to help this conversation forward. And I'm trying to think, is there anyone else left to kick this to?
You got AJ and you got Terran.
Let me popcorn to Terran.
Thank you. Thought I'd be the last one picked. All right, so I am Terran Leake. Currently, I'm with Amazon on their offensive security team. I am focused on application penetration testing. I've been in the field for about 10 years now. I started my career with the DoD as a federal contractor, where I performed system administration and server administration. And then I moved on to a healthcare company, went into finance, where I first got into web application testing, which I've been doing since. Went into consulting, so EY, banking, TD, and few more companies after that. I pretty much ended up here, or I'm currently here at Amazon. I'm a Jersey girl, but I have spent a lot of my years in Atlanta, and that's pretty much it. So I'm really excited to be here and share with you all.
And AJ, last but certainly not least.
I have the honor of being picked last. I love it. All right, my name is AJ Yan. I'm originally from San Diego, California. I live in beautiful Miami now. I got my start in cybersecurity in the U.S. Army, similar to Chris on the panel. I'm a veteran along with Dondi as well. Started for about 6 years there in the U.S. Army, working as a signal officer, ultimately earning the rank of captain. And about 3.5 years ago, I got out of the Army, transitioned into cybersecurity consulting, where I focused on cloud advisory and compliance assessments, SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, HITRUST, all of those fun alphabet soup frameworks you all know about. Most of my time was spent, though, on cloud advisory and helping people build secure environments on the cloud, mainly on AWS, where I learned a lot and was able to help grow our team there at the consulting firm I was at, from a team of 9 of us to well over 100. My education background includes an undergraduate degree from Florida State University, where I also played basketball there. I have a master's degree from Georgetown University in technology management, number of AWS certs and information security certs. And currently I'm on the ISC Squared Miami chapter board, along with a founding board member of the National Association of Black Compliance and Risk Management Professionals, a new nonprofit that's trying to get more people that look like us here on this panel into the compliance and risk management space. And really, just lastly, I'm really humbled and honored to be here. This is a great thing to be on, seeing all these people that look like me and cybersecurity professionals sharing our knowledge and insights with the next generation of Black cybersecurity professionals. This is something 10 years ago I wouldn't have even imagined to see. So thank you, Najla, for putting this on, and I'm humbled to be on the panel with all these other great folks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your lovely intros. I just want to say that I personally Jordan and Tanika are here to help moderate with me, so they won't be speaking. But if you maybe have any questions and I miss it, or any of the panelists miss, you can definitely private message both of them, either one of them actually, and they'll make sure that I see it just in case I miss it. But I thank everyone for being here. So we're gonna get right into it, because I think that it's important that we don't beat around the bush and just talk about what it is that we're here to talk about. And so one of the first questions I have, and I want everyone, and I think this popcorn method works pretty well. So once you answer, just popcorn to somebody else. It'll just have the flow go really well. So one of my first questions is what is your current view and your thoughts and opinions about where we are as Black people, you know, in the cybersecurity industry? Where are we now? And I'll start with Wayne.
Okay. Oh, where we are now, I think we're at a position where people are starting to realize that there's more to things related to security, right? There isn't just one particular path that people can take, and that we're starting to see more people transition into penetration testing, more people transition into compliance. But still there's like so much room to grow. You know, a lot of times we see a lot of people, they come in and they don't think that they only have one particular track that they could follow. And right now, I just feel as though we have a good opportunity of where we can really bring the community together and really set the new standard of what we should look like moving forward. You know, traditional how it was in the past, you know, we didn't have a lot of people coming in and bringing us assets and bringing us information that we need. And I think right now, we're at a position where we have a lot of people who are on this panelist or even across the world where they have the background knowledge of where we can start to move people forward to say, hey, here's how you can get into this. Here are some things that you can do. And here are kind of platforms that you can follow and best practices here. So I think right now we're at almost at the starting point of where we can start to shift the pipeline of where we are today with, you know, there are a lot of things in place where we can move the process forward. All right, I guess I'll pitch this to AJ then.
Appreciate it, Wayne. Yeah, I agree. I think we're at a pivotal moment, but I think all of us will agree that there's not enough in this field at this moment, especially coming from my background in consulting, which a number of other panelists here have that experience as well. When we go into these different clients' conference rooms and we're sitting there talking with our customers, you don't see a lot of folks that look like us in those C-suite roles or just really in any roles. And I think that's on us. That's on us here on this panel to bring more people up, which is great that we're doing this. This is great that we're doing this right now is because we have the ability to really ignite that next generation and show them that there's another way. Just speaking from experience, growing up in California, I knew of a couple ways to get out of the situation I was in. It was sports or it was doing something illegal. And I went the sports route and I was able to get to college by playing sports. But I want the next generation to understand that, you know, the tech world is a way to do it. Everybody doesn't have to know how to code. Everyone doesn't have to be a pen tester, or there's so many, like you were saying, Wayne, there's so many different avenues into this field that the more of us that look the way we do and can explain this to the next generation coming up is going to be a great way to get more folks into this field so that when we go in these conference rooms and we're consulting, we see more people that look like us. So I think we have work to do, but this panel is an example of what the future of this field could look like. And I'll throw it over to Chris.
So Chris, before you answer, Wayne mentioned the pipeline issue, right? And we often hear that. So I want you to expound on that as you answer, you know, this general question as well, because I think that's important to tackle.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. One of the things that happened with me is I'm just a kid from Atlanta that made really good decisions. I really didn't have somebody that looked like me in a position of power that I could aspire to. And so that's one thing that I've kind of taken on my shoulders is every opportunity that I get to be a beacon or to put somebody's story on display for other people to look up to emulate. I want people to see themselves in the stuff that I put out, whether it's on social media or the podcast. And I feel like it's getting better, but I think it's on all of us. Like the folks on this call, we got a lot of experience. We have a lot of power. We have a loud voice that we can actually, you know, scream out to the world that, you know, we're here and we need more help. We need more people to get on this train. So from a pipeline perspective, I think we got to get even earlier. We got to get in elementary schools. We need to get in middle schools. We need to get these kids aspiring to be cybersecurity professionals, because I think cybersecurity is such a great equalizer from a socioeconomic perspective. So really just hammering that home for the kids out there. Like I have my daughters reading kids books that are geared towards kids getting into coding and cybersecurity, and it's just exposure. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you must do coding, but just exposing them to that seeing, us, and, seeing, sisters and brothers on the call, and then maybe they want to aspire to be something like that. But that's what I think about. And I will popcorn Dondi.
Thanks, Chris. And I do echo a lot of the sentiments you just mentioned. One thing that I'm seeing is that, we're here as African Americans in the cybersecurity industry. But I think a lot of us, and this is a kudos to you, Chris, because you're out there and you're extremely visible. I think a lot of us are tend to just naturally be more introverted. But I don't think that at this point in the progression of cybersecurity, when it comes to African Americans, I don't think position to not be visible. We have to be visible because we're suffering from an identity crisis. People see cybersecurity and tech professionals as the white guy with so-called, cyber geek or whatever. But in actuality, cybersecurity professionals look a lot like the people on this call. And, there's a whole generation of Black men and Black women who just simply need to be nudged. To think that, everyone in the cybersecurity industry has to be like this master coder or hacker, it's almost as if you're saying everyone in the healthcare industry has to be a surgeon. And if you think about the wide variety of jobs that touches almost, anything when it comes to the healthcare industry, our industry will look a lot like that. So we have to, get out there and just like have a message that like you could, the average Black person walking around has a place in cybersecurity. They just have to find where they fit in. But a lot of times they need that nudge from someone that's actually doing it. So whether you are, doing something as visible as Chris, having a well-known cybersecurity podcast, or simply just, once or twice a year going to your local elementary or, middle or high school career day, we all, as professionals in the industry, whether you're a junior or whether you're, more senior, we have a duty to find a place or a reason to be visible, no matter how small that might be. But those are my thoughts. And I'll kick it to Octavia.
Yeah, thanks, Dondi. I really think it's important for us to actually connect to one another. What I'm finding, and I was talking to Najla last week, what I'm finding is there's an entire group of people who there's a wall and there's a disconnect. Right, I happen to be very well connected and partner with a lot of organizations, and therefore I'm very visible, right? And if I'm not visible, I'm in the background pulling strings and connecting other people. However, when I'm going to be honest, when the Black Cyber Association popped up, I realized that there is an entire group of people who don't know how to connect. Right, and as AJ said, like I think that's on us. That's on us to connect. That's on us to actually reach out. But it's also the onus is not just on us as those who have been in the profession for over 10 years, 15, 20 years. It's also on everyone else to be honest about what you want to do and what you want to be. Right. I remember, the way that I got into cyber was because there was another Black man who was leaving the company, and he decided that he did not want to be replaced by anyone else but an African-American person. And so he literally pulled me out of my out of my team and said, you're gonna apply for this network security position. I'm like, what is network security? Like, what are you talking about? 6 months out of college, I had no idea of the possibilities, but he said he did not want anyone else but me in that position because he saw something in me. We have to be willing and able to actually see. And when people say that they don't, want to do what we're doing, we need to be able to connect them to people who we know who are doing what they want to be doing. I didn't grow up with a mentor. I didn't get a mentor. I still don't have a cybersecurity mentor. I just have a group of people who I'm cool with at this point because I made it to a certain point. But we have to figure out how we can actually connect. We have to figure out how we connect to people. And those who are coming in, y'all gonna have to be realistic we can't have 30 mentees. So we may push you off to someone else. You're gonna have to connect to those people and be very real with what you're trying to do and just check in. So I really think that it's really about connection and mentoring.
I would agree. I'm gonna popcorn to Terran because I met Terran through her sister in a group chat, and I'm in tons of group chats, and we had a minorities in cybersecurity group chat, and I was, expressing my interest in what I wanted to do, and I was saying, like, I had to keep redoing my resume because you have all these 11,000 qualifications listed on the job postings, and I wanted someone to, review that and talk with me. And her sister just was like, here, talk to my sister. And so that's how I got to know Terran. And, she shares, this is how it is. And I want you to share where you see this, where are we, Terran, in your eyes? How can we do better? Where are we currently right now? And just go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything, that the panelists have said so far. I think that, we definitely need to see more Black people in tech, more Black people in cybersecurity, especially more Black people in big tech, right? One thing that I'll mention is that the interest surrounding cybersecurity and careers within cybersecurity, that has grown a lot. I mean, I can't imagine 10 years ago being in a group of hundreds of minorities that had cybersecurity interests. So I think that's really good to see, and at least that's there. I know that it's definitely hard to navigate, getting into the field. It's a lot of, different moving pieces. There's no one way to get in, and everyone has their own story. I think that really, like, when we spoke, it's important to get as much knowledge as possible. So instead of having a mentor, have multiple mentors, do your own research, exhaustive research. Be strong in what you actually can learn. So you don't have experience currently, then it's on you to learn the concepts and build a foundation, So I think we're making some way, in the industry, but I think that seeing events like this, are definitely encouraging. It's I think it does a lot. I mean, I was 19 when I decided that I wanted to get into cyber, and I really could not imagine, seeing a panel full of Black people, that have done so much in the industry. I didn't have a mentor. I had to figure things out. So I think this event itself, actually contributes to the overall goal of representation within this field.
Popcorn to somebody, Terran.
Okay, good. I thought you
We got Tia, we got Cedric, we got Paul.
Popcorn, Tia.
All right. I was hoping for that because I did want to sort of piggyback on your representation comment. I think for me, one of the biggest issues in the cybersecurity space, when you look beyond just the general cybersecurity skills gap, like that's a global thing beyond race, beyond gender, et cetera. But then when you take a closer look at it, it's even bigger, right? When you focus on the Black community. And part of that is, where do I go? What do I do? How do I get in? But I think some of the lack of interest is due to lack of confidence in whether I can be successful. And part of that is I don't see enough people like me doing this. So you know what? I think I might go do this thing over here. There's more people that look like me over there. I probably got a better shot. I can talk to more people, etc. So back to the earlier point that was made around not being an introvert and being visible, it is critically important for folks that have made it or figured it out, or even not fully made it, so to speak, but figured out how to get in, how to differentiate yourself. It's important to share that information and be visible to drive the confidence that'll then drive more interest and more opportunity. And to the point of being an introvert, honestly, I prefer to be Batman in my cave, behind the scenes mastermind, saving the world. But that's not where my career took me. You know, my career has taken me to a place where I'm in front of people and I'm getting awards and I'm being recognized, and I don't like the spotlight. And I had to have a bit of a come to Jesus moment with myself and say, hey, it's not about you, it's about everybody else. So fine, you don't like the spotlight, then turn the light around and shine it on somebody else. And that is what I'm here to do. So the minute that I gain the light, I'm like, yo, look at this person over here. And for me, I'm passionate about mentoring for a lot of the same reasons you've already heard. I didn't have anyone to show me the way. I grew up in the South. I didn't have a strong sense of community. I was always the odd one out, interested in stuff no one else was interested in. I was weird. I was a new kid. I was too smart. So always having to figure things out, you know, on my own. So I did make a lot of mistakes. I did waste a lot of time. I did waste a lot of money. But fact of the matter is, I never gave up. So it didn't fail because I didn't stop trying. And so helping others navigate this crazy space, like people say, get into cybersecurity. Well, what does that mean, right? Like to the earlier point, there's so many paths. Everybody feels like they have to code, but you don't. You have these organizations focused on STEM, but cybersecurity is not a part of that, right? And it's all important to just bring it to the surface and represent. And part of the reason I teach is because the education system is broken, right? Around cybersecurity. It's all theory, it's learn this, like everybody's taught as if they're gonna go into an organization and manage a program when folks aren't taught how data moves. If you don't know how data moves, how are you gonna understand how to secure it? So anyway, I'm getting excited. I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but we have a long way to go.
I love
I
this,
think
Tia.
representation is a key component in doing better.
Paul, share some of that good knowledge that you got going on there. What are your thoughts?
Some of the good knowledge. Huh? So you know, I've been at this for a while, right? And what I've seen, I've certainly seen an evolution in cybersecurity or in information security that has moved into cybersecurity over time. I've noticed an explosion of the industry itself and the different forks and divergences of the industry. But the growth within the African American community relative to those forks has been kind of these spurts where it's sputter, then we go, sputter, then we go, sputter. And so, you know, if you want to think about that for a minute and try to understand why that is, right? So, you know, certainly coming in early on, you're in a space that is really not designed for you. A space that really doesn't take you into account, right? And it takes people like the people that are on this panel to pull you aside and say, hey, this is something that you can do. You can make some good money doing it as well. You know, I know that you have the aptitude to do it. The question is whether you have the drive to do it or not, right? None of this will ever be handed to any of us. And so if anyone is even considering the fact that someone is going to reach out to you and just tell you, hey, this is exactly how this works, that will never happen for you. What will happen is you have to put yourself out there. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, as I noticed one of the people said in the chat. And you have to expose yourself. You have to be okay with being vulnerable, but also be understanding and also be confident in what you know, right? The things that you know, no one can take those things from you. And so you use that energy to learn and get exposure to things that may make you uncomfortable, right? And as you get more exposure to things, then you get a lot more confident about what you know. And then that opens these doors and opens these avenues for you. Or it gives you the opportunity and ability to actually kick the door in, right? And walk in yourself. But do not go into this thinking that someone is, you know, certainly our non-melanated friends, they're not going to, you know, necessarily extend a hand to you to come and compete with them in those spaces. They're just not going to do that necessarily. So you have to take ownership of that on your own. And again, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I definitely agree. I always like to say, like, you can't do me like I do me, and I can't do you like you do you. So me sharing what I know is not going to take anything from me, and you sharing what you know is not going to take anything from you. So I want to ask Cedric, well, what did you have any setbacks in your career as you've been moving along? And if you have, did it make you consider just leaving the field altogether? Because, you know, people don't talk about the bad parts of, you know, what is happening or what's being dealt with. Like, people don't talk about, you know, the mental breakdowns that they may have, or, you know, if someone, you know, undercut them. You know, that's important for people to learn, to be able to know how to deal with situations, not necessarily replicate it to the T, but at least have some knowledge of how to handle something if they're in a similar situation.
Sure. Yeah, I've definitely had what I would call setbacks or challenges throughout my career. One of them I can think about is I started my cybersecurity career in the intel space as a government contractor. So very different world from where I work now, which is in the tech space. And when I transitioned from the contracting world into the tech space, one of the things I found that I was pretty distraught by was initially like doors were getting closed on me when it came to career opportunities. For example, like I do well for phone interviews, make it on site for a lot of the big tech companies out of the Bay Area. Then I get on site and there'd be things that I just wasn't prepared for, like these really challenging coding exercises and all sorts of whiteboarding scenarios that in the contracting world, like you just don't see those scenarios. And so I've had challenges like that where I felt like I was good enough and I could learn the roles, and yet the doors being closed on me. At least that's how it felt to me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, even one instance, the door was closed and I tried to get feedback on it. And the feedback was, well, you did everything right in the interview, but you don't have a public presence. You haven't spoken at conferences. You don't have a blog. And it was like, well, for me, it's like every time I move forward, I feel like the line just keeps moving. And I was just at a point where I was just real frustrated because I felt like a lot of the folks who were in those positions didn't even have the skills. Like I felt like I had more experience than they did, and yet they're closing the door on me as a Black candidate trying to get into space. And even the interviews of the people, the panel of the folks that I would interview with, none of them looked like me. They were all white males. And so I felt like they were gatekeeping or trying to keep me out. And initially I was kind of frustrated, wanted to be done with security altogether. But I grew up playing sports, and it triggered what I call the Mamba mentality, where you close the door on me, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get so good, you cannot ignore me. And that caused me to go and shore up every weakness that I had and get a blog post, start challenging myself, get out of my comfort zone, speaking at conferences, because I do have things that are valuable that I can share. So it's been an opportunity for me to take that negativity, turn it around, and drive it to be the best that I can be in my career.
That's excellent. I think that the more you realize that, you know, every door isn't going to open for you, but that don't mean you give up. I think the better you can plan your method to getting where you want to go. I'm going to jump to Tia, because you said that, I think a lot of people also said that they didn't have mentorship. So at what point did you know, if in your career, you know, you said you transitioned to, you know, a pre-sales role. And so where did you see yourself ever going into like a sales role, or, you know, just transitioning in that area? And how has it impacted you going forward?
Yeah, that is a great question, because, you know, taking on that role changed not only my career trajectory, but changed me as a person. You know, just given the way that I grew up, kind of being, you know, isolated, I'm out here on my own, I got to figure it out on my own. I've never been much of a people person. So, you know, for me, the tech role made sense because I'm just behind the keyboard saving the world. As long as people can find their desktop icon and the network works, I'm good. I don't have to talk to anybody. But once I kind of got pushed into that, hey, can you just talk to these people? And it went well, and someone wanted me to do it again. It was like, okay, well, I could say no, or I could take this as an opportunity to see. And I think what happened for me is back to the point of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, right? One of the things I always say is success lies just outside your comfort zone. And if you just kind of take a step out there and give it a shot, once you achieve that success, it becomes addictive because you've taught yourself that you can do it. So now it's like, well, what else can I do? And what else can I do? And what else can I do? So I went from being this almost hermit that really didn't want to deal with people. When people would say networking, my skin would crawl. And now I'm in front of people all the time. It's what I do for a living. And it is not something that I thought that I would ever do. As a matter of fact, in one of my first systems admin roles, when I had my review with my boss, her feedback to me was that I could do better at selling because I would go in and I would do exactly what I was in there to do. But when I left, our customers weren't asking for more. So my mentality, to Cedric's point of the Mamba mentality, is you're only going to ask me something I don't know how to do once. You're only going to tell me I'm missing some skill once. You're only going to run something by me that I can't comment on once. Once that happens, I'm going to be an expert, period. And that is the mentality that I took. So when she told me that I wasn't great at sales, I didn't want to do sales, but that was my opportunity. Like, okay, well, I'm going to show her. And so now I'm this people person, right? I'm talking to people. I'm in front of people. I sell for a living, you know, and it's changed my life because I think my fear was that I wouldn't be accepted because I historically wasn't accepted. And when I got out there and I was accepted and my career's growing and I want to talk to Tia and I want to hear from Tia, it was like, whoa, what have I been doing all this time? And why have I been neglecting myself of this opportunity? So, I mean, the message there is it doesn't matter where you come from. If you have an opportunity, take it because you never have any clue where you could end up.
I agree. Chris, have you had any setbacks in your career?
I would say in the beginning, in my career, I kind of had three strikes against me because in the community, you know, at DEF CON, they had Spot the Fed, and I came from the government, right? So I couldn't just openly like, hey, I'm part of government, but I want to be a part of the community. Also, everybody looked different than I did. And then also my background, I wasn't a sysadmin. I wasn't a DBA. I was intelligence. So I had three strikes to get me trying to get into the community. And there was a Busta Rhymes lyric that I always took with me, and I remind myself of it to this day: is if you're not going to be part of the greatest, be the greatest yourself. And it wasn't until I built that confidence in myself and my skills and my trade craft, and I started to build my community around me, finding people that were like-minded. As soon as I got that, then all the doors opened up. All the people that I looked up to in that community, all of a sudden they saw who I was. But I would say that that's probably the same for a lot of folks out there, that they're going to have a hard time breaking into the community based on geographic location or interest, different things like that. But just take that with you. Like if you can't be a part of the greatest, be the greatest yourself, and then be so good they can't ignore you.
I think we all have heard that, you know, we have to be 3 times as smart, 3 times, you know, as good going forward to, you know, even get an opportunity to, you know, participate sometimes, not even be like front and center, just to, you know, be a participant in anything. And I think that, you know, we take that with us, that, you know, you have to be the best or else you're not going to get to where you're going. So I want to jump to some, we have a couple military professionals, you know, some vets on here. I believe AJ, Paul, Chris. I want to talk to you three specifically because I know that I've talked to quite a few people that have said, hey, I'm coming out of the military, whatever branch. How can I transition into a cyber role? Like they may be doing some cyber stuff now, or they're interested in doing it. And I think that that's important to a lot of people to kind of get some guidance on what could be helping them to successfully transition into the industry. So if you can start, AJ, I'll start with you and then we'll jump to Paul and then we'll jump to Chris. and just offer some, tell me and the attendees what it is that can be helpful for them as they make this transition or continue to still stay in the military, but want to transition into, you know, the cyber aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I talked to a lot of veterans about this because it seems that at least lately, more and more veterans are realizing that cybersecurity is a great field for them to transition into. And I definitely agree. And I think the number one thing that they can do, and I don't know if this is just for veterans, this is for everybody, go and talk to people that were in your similar position or were in the military and ask them, how did they get into this field? When I left the military, one of the things I did was I finally started to get active on LinkedIn. I finally started to use that tool in the manner that it needs to be used, and by reaching out to people, as some of the folks on here were talking about, be vulnerable, go ask questions. And if there's any veterans on this, I'm going to drop my LinkedIn in the chat. Use me as the first guinea pig and reach out to me, and I'll hop on a call with you just to chat, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you need to be focusing on. You don't know how much time you need to transition out of the military. When you're leaving the military, there's a lot of fear mongering that goes on, where they tell you, you know, there's a potential to be homeless, which we're not saying that that's not a potential. They tell you that it's going to be tough to find a job with the same pay and different things like that. But if you talk to people that have been in this field, if you talk to people that look like you that have been in this field, we're going to tell you some of those landmines to look out for. We're going to be able to coach you through what resources to use while you're still in the military, and how to use those resources effectively. So I think the number one thing that you can do, whether you're for veterans, is reach out to other veterans in cybersecurity. Go and talk to them and ask them for advice and mentorship and guidance. You're not going to get a response from everybody. People are busy, right? But that doesn't mean that you stop because you didn't get one response. You got to continue to try and talk to these folks. And the other thing with the military is take advantage of the resources. You know, when you're in the military, there are a number of resources. They reimburse certifications. You have your GI Bill. You have the ability to go to these boot camps now that are covered by GI Bill. So there's a number of ways that you can get training, really high quality training from your military resources to transition effectively into this field. And I've found that there's a lot of veterans in the cybersecurity industry, and the veterans in the cybersecurity industry are willing to help because we know what it's like. We know that anxiety and that fear of leaving the military, where you had a high rank. I left the military as a captain, you know, and when I left, I was in charge of about 180 soldiers. And when I was transitioning out, I knew that I was not going to be in charge of 180 people anymore. But I only knew that because my father was in the Marines and he coached me up and let me know what was expected. And some veterans can't take that. They can't take that advice and understand that, you know what, you're not the big dog anymore. But that's okay. It's okay to be a little bit humble and come back down and forget that you're Captain Jan, as I was. My last name's Jan. I had to forget that I was Captain Jan and had to become AJ. And you don't learn that unless you talk to a vet that's been there. So again, you have to talk to people. That's why we're here on this panel, is to give advice for what we went through, so that the next generation doesn't have to go through that. So for any veteran, it's connect with people, reach out to people that have been in your situation, and you'll be able to get some of that guidance to use the resources that you need. I'll throw it over to Dondi. You're a vet as well, right? I think.
I am. I was an information warfare officer in the Navy. What comes to mind to me are two things that I feel like I wish I had known when I was transitioning from the military to private industry. The first thing is, I know frequently, at least for the Navy, and I'm sure other services have some similar function, is that when you get out, you go to this, it's usually some type of seminar that helps with your resume. You may not be used to talking to in a public. One thing that I would recommend is for that military sponsored resume workshop. Right on LinkedIn, there are plenty of resume consultants that for a couple of $100, they will take the time to talk to you and help you translate your military experience into a resume that a hiring manager wants to see. So don't just rely on the military resume, tips. Go get a private resume consultant to help with that. The second thing is, and this is something I would argue that this is not just for veterans, but it's one thing that makes this very dangerous. What I'm about to talk about, very dangerous for veterans, and that's that in the military, a large percentage of your income is tax free. So you could be making, and I'm gonna make up a number, 75K in the military, and then you get a job outside the military making 100K, but you can in essence have a pay cut because the taxable benefit from your military salary does not outweigh your new raise. And that actually happened to me. So when I got out of the military, I actually took a pay cut, even though I thought I was making more. So talk to people about salaries, do your research. You will probably know a vet that has transitioned. People say don't talk about salaries, but when it comes to Black people, I am against that. I am against that. I mean, you don't have to give exact numbers, but we have to start being a lot more transparent with each other because the disparities in income in the cybersecurity field is wild. You can have two people with the same and one might be making 60 start. And I'm not saying like, you know, within your circle talking salary, but we have to start having a way to do your due diligence and figure out what the market salary is. Don't just go in there and you know, accept something just because it sounds good. And that's especially true for the military. And I'll just stop there. I hope that's helpful.
I definitely appreciate you bringing up salaries because I think that's a taboo topic that we don't talk about. And I think that it's important that we have that transparency with salaries. So I want to throw it to Paul and then to Chris, and then and you guys can add in about salary negotiation and getting our coins, because we know that we're often underpaid, and often, you know, we find out later that our non-Black counterpart is making 10 to 20,000 more sometimes, and now you just look in there and you're like, you don't know what to do. You're upset and you don't know what to do. So I think that that's a good segue, Dondi. But go ahead, Paul. Any advice for any military professionals, and, you know, hit on some salary?
Sure. So I've never had the pleasure of serving, but however, I do have a number of young Black men, particularly that I mentor coming out of the military or have mentored coming out of the military. You know, I spent some time in Booz Allen Hamilton where I interacted with a lot of people that were coming out of the military and looking to try to break into cybersecurity and being very concerned and very scared about the fact that they're walking into these spaces where there aren't people that look like them. And again, at the end of the day, you know, you have been given some training, right? You've been given some training. You have gathered some knowledge that is your knowledge and your knowledge alone. And what you have to do is figure out, how to transition that knowledge into something that is useful in the civilian world. Secondarily, you have to also understand that you don't necessarily have the protections, if you will, of the military in the civilian world. And so you're going to have to be more comfortable with being reminded that you are a Black man or a Black woman in cybersecurity in the commercial world. And so what I spend a lot of time doing when I'm mentoring is not around the cybersecurity skill sets and things themselves at all. It's about, how do you survive this being Black, right? How do you get into these spaces? How do you take the rejection? How do you use that rejection as energy to keep coming? How do you use that to not quit? And those types of things. And so what ends up happening is we start to break down kind of that fear barrier. Again, because these people, you know, many of these people are soldiers, right? Most of them are soldiers. So they've already learned and been conditioned on how to deal with adversity. This is just a different form of adversity, right? And so at the end of the day, they have to be able to transition that training, that energy, that strive to survive into the cybersecurity field, right? Secondarily, you know, speak with people that do what you do, or do what you want to do, or do what you might be interested in. I know for myself, you know, certainly if a person of color reaches out to me, I make every effort humanly possible to respond to it. You know, I get busy, obviously, just like everyone else. But I certainly try to respond if someone, especially a younger person, is reaching out to me, asking me about, hey, I'm trying to break into this field. I don't know what to do, because I didn't have that at all. When I came into the field, there was no other me, and, to reach out to. And so, if I can provide that kind of, latitude to people, I certainly try to do so. Around the salaries, my wife, so Kirsten Brady, for the people that don't know who she is.
I see her back there, by the way. Hi, Kirsten.
She has a pinned tweet on her Twitter page about salary negotiations and what types of things to be looking for and what things are actually part of a salary negotiation, right? It's not just about money, right? It's about equity. It's about, vacation days. It's about, performance enhancements, performance lifts, incremental bonuses. There's all types of things that are negotiable. I mean, you'd be really surprised as to what you can negotiate for. They're certainly not going to volunteer that information up to you and say, hey, here's this litany of things that you can, ask us for. But if you go in there and ask for them, the only thing they can say is no. I mean, you're not, nothing else will happen to you if you ask these questions. So I encourage everyone to go and certainly take a look at that pinned tweet. For me, having, obviously led people in organizations and things like that, and basically, being able to get people to kind of, again, move outside of their comfort. The same is true of the people that I mentor. I need you to be okay with stepping outside of your comfort. I'm going to push you out there. I'm going to push you outside your comfort, and when you try to come back, I'm probably going to close the door on you and be like, no, you stay out there until you figure it out. And then I'm right on the other side of the door, but I'm not going to hold your hand. And I'm not going to coddle you in any way, because that is not what you're going to encounter when you get into corporate America. When you get in corporate America, you're going to have to fight and claw and stretch for everything that you want. And the more energy you put into doing that, the more successful ultimately that you'll be.
I definitely agree with that.
Can I just jump in, because I want to sort of echo something that Paul said. This is sort of related. I'm originally from Selma, Alabama. So in Alabama, I would say racism can sometimes be a little bit more overt. And so coming from, the deep South, going into corporate America, I had never really learned the skill of identifying microaggressions. And so something that I'll say is that when you run as race related or just doesn't feel right, don't keep that to yourself. Like, share it with, even if you don't know someone is doing something wrong, find someone that's trusted and say, hey, this situation happened and I just did not feel right. Because there'll be people out there who can, help you identify that situation for what it is. I was in a situation at a company where I did not receive a good performance review, and the feedback that I received is that, and I'm going to quote directly because I'll never forget this: Dondi, you're just too smart. You need to be way more concise in how you communicate. And I really thought that was true. I took that to heart, and from that moment at that company, it's like I prejudged and tried to think through everything I was about to say, which made me weaker, which made me, I was not empowered. I did not have confidence, and it was a downward spiral. And then finally, I found a mentor and I mentioned that situation to someone, and they was like, hey, that was totally inappropriate. And they gave me a whole checklist of things that I needed to do to go back that situation up. I ended up leaving that organization, but I say all that to say that if something just doesn't feel right, it's not right, find someone in your trusted circle to talk to about it. Don't just, ego is not the time to have an ego when you get a bad assessment. Talk to someone openly about it, because had I kept that to myself, I would have just kept, struggling, wondering, am I too smart? Which was ridiculous looking back on it. But just wanted to echo on what Paul was saying, like reach out, like trust your safety net. People are there for a reason.
Chris?
Yeah, I would echo what AJ, Paul, and Dondi said. it doesn't matter if you are in cyber in the military. It doesn't matter if you're leading people and you're not hands on keyboard. It doesn't matter if you're doing underwater basket weaving. It really doesn't. One thing that we all have in common, coming from that service background, is this push for mission accomplishment. Like I look at somebody like Dondi, I can't imagine like how many like mission accomplished he had to get through, like through all his schooling. I mean, he became a lawyer, he started his own law firm, all this crazy stuff. And so that's one thing that we have that some other people might not have, is that push to accomplish a mission. So like I went to college after the military. I was working full time. And so I lost my Sundays for 3 years to graduate. So I would say that focus on mission accomplishment, make it happen, talk to the right people, ask the right questions, just don't take no for an answer. And as far as salaries, I would say is that for me, it's always been, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So like, what are the situations where you can like change my life and my family's life? If you can't do that, then, you know, maybe next time. But if you really want to entice me to come to your organization, you have to substantially, you know, pay me and support my family the way they need to be supported. But that's the advice I would give to folks.
And I that's actually nice to hear that. Hell yes. I'm going to start using that, because that definitely lets you know, like, all right, this is something that I really want and I'm really excited about it. But you also have to be mindful that everybody's hell yes is going to look different, right? So your hell yes may be more money and my hell yes may be more vacation days, because I don't want to be called when I'm on PTO about an incident that can be sorted with documentation, right?
Yep.
That you have in the thing. So be mindful, you know, when you go in here, that what are you looking for? Like Paul said, it's not just salary. Like it's not just salary, but you better make sure you get your coins first. That number has to look right. And don't be afraid to negotiate. I know a lot of people, has anybody, I've seen some people say that they went to negotiate, right? And then their offer was rescinded. Has anybody on this panel experienced that? No?
I haven't experienced it, but if you do, that's a sign not to go there. Go run far away, because if the organization doesn't expect you to negotiate, it's not the organization you should work at. You should negotiate every time that you get an offer, and again, know your worth. Like Dondi was saying, talk to someone else that knows what you should be getting paid, and show them that offer letter. Talk through the offer letter, and there's a number of people that I've spoke to that have accepted an offer and then came and talked to me. And I'm like, hey man, why'd you do that? We should have had a conversation beforehand, because there's a little bit more money you could have got up out of them. Again, like to that, I've never experienced it, but if you do, that's a red flag. Run as fast as you can away from there.
Octavia, what were you going to say? Hold on, Dondi. What were you going to say, Octavia?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. If they rescind, then, you know, you don't want to be there anyway. But I know, you know, I have in the past, you know, there's a company that really, really wanted me, and I really was just, you know, interviewing just to keep up my skills. And I really did not want to work for that company. So I jacked my negotiation way up high. Like they had to give me the kit, the caboodle, the truck, the yacht, everything, right? And it was very much on purpose, because, you know, and it goes back to what Chris says, it wasn't a hell yeah for me. And one of the things that I learned in that was, you know, if I don't necessarily need to go for the money. If it's a role that I really don't want, and I know that I don't want that role, I'm not even going to try to go that way. I'm not going to settle just for money. I'm not going to try to, you know, make it work because I'm getting paid this amount of money, so I'm going to make it work. If my happiness is going to be impacted by the role that I take on, and it's going to prohibit me from being able to do the work that I do in the industry and the community service work that I do, there's no way in the world that I would give that up. And I think we need to be very, very careful about going after the coins and forgetting that our lives are more than just money, right? And so that's something that we have to make sure that we are taking care of for our own mental health, because this industry is not for the weak, right? And so if you're doing something that you don't love doing, or if and you're just trying to jump from place to place, all right, I understand. Sometimes you have to feed your family. Find that other passion. I connect people all the time with artists and other people because they're just not satisfied. So I would just say, get your money, do your negotiation, but make sure your negotiation has that PTO, has, I want to completely disconnect. For me, if I can't be in Jamaica every year, and act like I don't have a family or a job, or my husband is just my boyfriend and we stole our parents' money and we just gonna be our land, like that's my vacation, right? So COVID's just really jacking me up. But I'm saying all that to say, make sure you keep your mental health in check and in mind when you're doing negotiations.
Very, 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 very important. I think that mental health, especially with current state of us, a lot of us being switched immediately to work from home. Let's say you were going into the office, and everyone's being switched to work from home, and a very big reduction in travel. You got to make sure that you are aware of what's going on mentally and reach out to someone. Don't try and take on all of that by yourself. Wayne, I have a question. What do you think are some critical skills for a security career? And I'm not talking about, we all know it's not just a technical aspect of it, because your technical, I think it can get you far. And then after a while, you got to bring in those soft skills, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some skills that you feel are very critical to a security career in general?
Yeah, I think that the most important piece is, you got to be able to communicate with people, right? You really got to be able to translate information from its technical level to its most, mundane level, right? You want to be able to say that, a lot of times you have a lot of people who are technical and they can explain things to the, to the T, but you got to be able to meet people where they are so that you can be able to talk to those things here. And that's just one subset of things here, right? But you also want to be able to communicate with people. You want to be able to translate things in real time, and you want to be able to understand things from a global perspective, right? A lot of times you may be looking at one portion, but you really got to understand how this really affects the business overall, right? I think that's one of the key things that people fail to realize in any kind of job that they do currently today. You may have one particular small portion that you look over, but then there's a global aspect and how it relates to manufacturing, how it relates to finance, how it relates to marketing. There are other facets of how things get impacted. So for you to understand those things is pretty much, I believe, is the most key thing in any job function, right? So if you look at, take the, trade on China, right? You look at how China has impacted the market here in the United States. How does that affect and roll down as it relates to your business? I think that's one of the key things, how you can communicate that towards any kind of role or job that you're functioning in today. So if you're in cybersecurity right now, you should really be able to understand, how do I communicate to my CISOs, or how do I communicate to any other kind of people you need to talk to in terms of this is the information that I need to share. That's pretty much where I would say is the most important thing, the most important soft skill that someone would need. You got to be able to communicate with people. You got to be able to meet people where they are and talk to them and bring that information so that's understandable to them.
Aaron, what's your thoughts on that? Some critical skills for a successful career.
I think that the ability to strategize, right? Measure your next move, make a decision on what you should be doing based off of facts, and, maybe using other people's mistakes, as guidance, and really just leverage all the knowledge that you have. Along with that, I think the ability to problem solve, like figure it out. Like it should be a known thing that you're not going to know everything. It's impossible, especially in security or in technology, period. It's just an ocean of knowledge. But I think the ability to figure it out is what really, is what the true talent is. That's what you'd be hired for. You have enough information, you've built enough, a strong enough foundation to where if your task is something, you know how to figure out the problem solve. How do you take a complex problem, break it into smaller pieces that you can actually understand, put it together, and then understand the larger picture. So, I mean, those both, to me, both of those skills kind of tie together, but strategy and problem solving would be important, in my opinion.
One soft skill I want to add is empathy. I think in security, you know, in the past, we've been seen as a blocking function, and people look at security as something that's going to prevent them from doing their job, whether that's a developer, whether that's the HR folks, whoever it is in the organization. They think security is going to stop them. And if we, as security professionals, and this is a lesson I had to learn in the military with my soldiers, is empathy. You got to understand where people are coming from. So you can't go to your developers. You can't go to those different business units and say, you have to do these things because I need to get through this audit, or I got my CISO on my back. That's not going to work. They're not going to do it. They're going to skirt it, and you're going to put in all these guardrails, and then they're going to find a way around it, and now you have a hole. So you need to go and understand where they're coming from. What are the tools they're using? Why are they using those tools? Not just come in and say, hey, you shouldn't be using that tool. Understand why they're using it. Is it because of their background? Is it because of their experience? And you can go back and find a solution. Going back to what Terran said about problem solving, you have to understand the problem. And sometimes security professionals come in with the idea of we're going to come in and implement security without understanding the business. And that never works. You're not going to be able to implement effective security without understanding how the business is currently operated. And that requires empathy. That requires sitting down with those different folks in those business units and saying, what are you currently doing? Not how you're doing it wrong, not you need to do it this way, just what are you currently doing, and being able to pull out some of those things that you can implement in the security space. So I think a lot of security professionals come into these situations as I'm the cop, I'm the bad guy, I'm coming in to catch you doing something, and we need to be enablers. If security becomes an enabling function where everybody understands that security is a part of their everyday thing that they do, whether that's them as an individual or them as their business unit, and they understand that, you know, we're not here to stop you from doing your job, we're here to help you do your job a little bit better while keeping the organization secure. And that just goes back to empathy. As a leader, it's important, and especially as a cybersecurity profession where we're kind of stuck in the corner sometimes and people look at us as the bad guy. We need to be able to come in and embed ourselves in these business units and these organizations by using empathy. I'm going to popcorn it over to Cedric.
Thanks, AJ. I 100% agree. And one thing I was going to mention to build on top of empathy is relationships. The longer that I work, I think the more that I'm realizing it's less about the technical knowledge I have and is more about who I know and how I can leverage those relationships. I think for me, it's starting to become more like a game of chess with my career. I think someone mentioned it earlier about like looking at your moves and what steps you want to take next, and relationships becomes key because there have been several points in my career where there was a move I wanted to make, but I wasn't in position to make that move, like switching careers or switching roles, switching teams. And so what I had to do was build relationships with someone who was on that team, and then they could actually be that voice for me in order to create that opportunity for me to move and over into the role that I wanted. So I think just getting to the point where you're not just showing up doing great technical work and leaving, but you're actually getting to know the people you work with. You'll be surprised down the road, you'll run into the same people in cybersecurity. It's a very small world. And that can actually lead to a new opportunity for you. It can lead to a speaking opportunity at a conference. It can lead to a job, right? It can lead to so many different things. So I think for me, relationships and just getting to know people, and it's uncomfortable for me because a lot of times there are like my white peers that may not be interested in me and building a relationship with me. And that's okay. Like I'll keep moving and I'll find somebody that is interested and I'll build with them, right? And it's just like I was mentioning, playing that chess game for your benefit and for your career and building those relationships. So anyway, that's kind of what came to my mind.
Can I want to add to that, because I think that I'm not sure. I know building relationships personally is not like sustaining the relationship. Like you build that connection, you initiate that connection, but how do you sustain it? Like I think a lot of a lot of people may not know how to sustain it, especially when you know, like me, I'm transitioning to the field, right? So how do I sustain my relationship with, you know, the senior level people that have these years of experience? Because sometimes I feel like, man, I don't want to bother this person. And they probably got 11,000 things to do. And I may have this small question, but I know that, you know, I really want to talk to them. So I think, can any of you, all of you, speak to, you know, what's your best way to get people to sustain those relationships when they make that connection?
So
Yeah.
I want to speak to that. So my biggest thing is shoot your shot, right? So I always tell myself, you can't tell yourself no. Let somebody else tell you no. You don't do it to yourself, right? So as African Americans, we have a tendency, and it comes back from, you know, what we have been told in the past. Like, we've been told that statistics say we're not going to be this, or statistics say we can't do that. And I'm like, what if you live your life as if there is no statistics, right? What if you just live your life as if you are going to do what you dream and what you aspire to do? And so you sustain a relationship really by just reaching out. If you think about someone, call them, right? Send them a message. If they say no or they don't respond, it is what it is, right? But at least you shot your shot. And sometimes you're gonna miss, but you're gonna end up, and the more you practice, you're gonna end up making more buckets. You're gonna continue to go. And so I would just say, you know, don't tell yourself no and just shoot your shot.
Yeah, I'd like to back up a little bit of what Octavia said. You know, you got to make sure that you start to connect with those people as soon as you see them, right? So in any other time, in situations where you may be going to lunch, right? Instead of sitting with your normal group of people who you go eat lunch with, you know, maybe go eat with those people. You know, you got to make sure that you maintain that relationship with people at any time that you can, because that's how it's going to allow you to bridge and, you know, expand into other things as well too. And I think she mentioned something else about, you know, how you talk to those people, right? You know, you may lose sight of those things, and everyone isn't for you, right? You're not gonna be able to have those everlasting relationships with people. So you have to make sure that you pick and choose the ones that you want to maintain.
I want to say something that echoes what everyone's saying, Najla, Wayne, and especially AJ, when he was talking about not being those gates, but being guardrails for the organization. So I was never into Formula One. That's the funny looking cars. They go super fast and they have races. There was a special on Netflix called Drive to Survive. And, you know, while the driver's in the car, they have a headset and they're listening to the people in the pit. They're watching all these gauges, seeing how fast, what's the health status of the car? How fast can the car go? Is the tires getting worn? Are you running? Is the engine running hot? Things like that. So if this is super important for everybody on the call, if you are in cybersecurity, like, take this mindset with you. The people in the pit are telling the driver how hard they can push the car to go to that next position, to get in front of the next person that's in front of them, to maybe even go all the way up to first. So if you take the mindset of security is telling the business how fast it can go under risky conditions, under their threat environment, not only are you going to build those relationships with the people in the business units, because you are enabling them to move fast. You're enabling them to be innovative. If you can speak that language and you have that mindset of cybersecurity, you're everybody's best friend.
Yeah, and I would just one follow-up, Najla, to what you were saying about not wanting to bother people. Bother us. Don't be afraid to not bother us. Bother us. Write us. I think a bunch of people have been dropping from the panel, have been dropping our LinkedIn's in there. Make us pay for that. You know, reach out to us.
You're definitely going to pay for it, especially from me. So I'm just, you know, I've talked to a few of you beforehand, and we were, you know, shooting the breeze and just talking. And I said to all of you, I was like, you know, I'm looking forward to building this relationship with you all, because I didn't see anyone like myself, aside from when I went to DEF CON last year and we all had Blacks in Cybersecurity. Shout out to Blacks in Cybersecurity. They did a meetup, and it was glorious. Like, I couldn't describe it any other way. And so me with, you know, I'm mostly heavily on Twitter, and I pop over to LinkedIn every now and then, but, you know, I got annoyed with seeing it's going to sound bad, but this is the truth. I got annoyed with seeing some of the same people on panels. And even myself, I got to speak on a couple of panels, right? But I'm not fully in the field yet. I'm still transitioning. And I said to myself, you know, I really want to see a panel of people that have these years of experience. I know they're out there. And lo and behold, my LinkedIn has been blowing up since all of this has happened. And I, you know, you guys are coming out of the woodwork. So this is very important for, you know, the junior people or the people that have, you know, 5 years of experience, 7 years of experience. Even if you have 20 years of experience and you want to meet, you know, other people that look like you, I think it's very important. So you're definitely going to pay for, you guys are definitely going to pay for putting your LinkedIn in here, just so you guys know.
Last point on the relationship building. I have one more point on relationships. As you're building those relationships, you got to give back too. Don't always expect us to. And I think Paul was mentioning this earlier, like we're going to challenge you. If you reach out to me and you want advice and mentorship, I'm going to make you go do some homework. If you say you want to go get Security Plus, okay, go book the cert and let's plan your study plan and let's actually put in the work. And when you reach out, talk to us about what you're currently doing and what you're currently working on and where you're trying to go. Don't just reach out and say, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity. That's similar to what Dondi said. Hey, I want to get in the medical field. That means a lot of things. So talk about what you really want to do, where you really want to go, and what are you working on and where are you headed? And then continue that. Don't just say, reach out, get a mentorship, have a great call with us, chat through something, and then walk away and never talk back. You got to continue to cultivate that relationship on both sides of the house. And it has to be a two-way street.
I agree. Tia, what were you going to say?
No, I mean, he made some really good points that I was going to touch on. I mean, back to the point of shooting your shot, keep shooting it, right? We all get busy. So if you send me a question on LinkedIn and I don't get back to you, I could be on vacation, quickly look at your message, it turns to red and I forget to go back and look at it. That doesn't mean I'm not interested. So shoot your shot again and again and again. And eventually, even if I don't want to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you just so you stop pinging me, right? And then back to not taking no for an answer. Whenever somebody tells me no, I'm like, well, I didn't ask the wrong question. You were just the wrong person to ask. So I'm gonna take my right question and I'm gonna go ask somebody else, right? And then when it comes to building relationships and networking in general, when you say something, say something. When you're talking to somebody, when you're in an interview, when you're networking, the goal is to be remembered. So when you get in front of somebody, networking isn't just talking about the weather. It's who are you? What are you up to? What are you interested in? Because a month later, when they're having a conversation with somebody that has a need that aligns to your skill set, they're going to remember you because you said something when they spoke to you. So I always tell people, figure out what your differentiators are, because everyone asks, oh, should I get a degree? Should I get certifications? Well, you can do all those things, but guess what? There's tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people out there getting the exact same education you are. So if you stop there, all of y'all look the same on paper. So figure out what's different about you, hang your hat on that, build your pitch about you and have that ready. When you talk to whoever it is you're talking to, start to build your personal brand. Personal brand is everything. And it's not just LinkedIn. It's not just Twitter. It's your internal personal brand as well. How easy are you to work with? How empathetic are you? How flexible are you? How strategic are you? Does your name come up when they need a special person to handle special project, or is it one of your peers? So what is it about you also being real with yourself that's keeping you from getting these opportunities also? So being self-reflective is also important and real with yourself. So when you reach out to these mentors, you know what your gaps are, you know where you need help, and then it's not us building all this out for you. I am very excited to help someone that just needs that push to know what direction to go in when they know where they want to go and they have the drive to get there.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on what Tia was saying, you know, and what some other panelists said as well. Networking is key, but don't just network with people that is in cybersecurity, right? It's very, very important. We may not be the ones that give you your opportunity, right? And so we sometimes discount other industries and other disciplines. And those other industries and disciplines, those are ones that are calling, you know, when they get promoted, when they get an opportunity to be, you know, the CTO or the CEO, or they are going to call you, right? But if you don't speak to them and you only are talking to people in cyber, and those are the only ones that you talk to, then it's likely then they're only going to deal with the people who they can actually reach out and touch, and the people who've been building those relationships with them. So let's, it's very important for us to network, for us to build each other, have private groups, right? If you're trying to study for something, or if you're trying to build out a strategic plan and you don't know how to build out a strategic plan, you need to have people who have built out strategic plans that you can give a call to and say, hey, can you send me your document? Send me a template. Hey, could you look at what I'm doing? Of course, clean it, but can you just look at this and help me to actually build this out so that we can actually, so when I go back into my company, then I'm actually presenting this and it looks like I know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's very important for us to reach out and not be so secretive about what we're trying to do.
Agreed. I do think that internal dialogue that Tia mentioned is very important because, like, I'll speak like for Black women, we always have this stigma that, we're not friendly, or our facial expression may just be real relaxed, or we don't have a bubbly personality, like say you're an introvert. And we get pigeonholed into being, oh, she's not friendly. She don't work with her because she doesn't speak up in meetings or things like that. It's hard, and it's a balancing act that I think a lot of us have to go through and deal with. And so how has, I want to speak specifically to Tia, Octavia, and Terran about how has being a Black woman in the industry, helped and hindered you, and what advice can you offer to us as here on the panel today? Terran?
I mean, how it's helped, I think Black women, it could be biased, have just something special to offer, right? Something I feel like we know how to figure, things out, A lot of us have been through different things in life to where we know how to leverage that in whatever task that, we face, and connect the lessons learned from different, events or incidents in our lives, and actually use that to, problem solve, which is like what I'm big on, right? So I think that you're right. We can be misunderstood. I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I do have that relaxed, that relaxed face that often gets misinterpreted. But I think like the true value of diversity and inclusion is bringing, beyond race, who you are to the table, coupling it with your technical knowledge, but also like the lessons that you learn to get you to this very point, currently. How do you do that to address these honestly stagnant issues that I've seen in technology since I've joined, the field, or since I've become part of the field, and I think that that's the true push, that's the reason for that push for diversity, is because employers are aware that, bringing in people that are different, actually provides that value. So it's weird though, because, I'll often find that they'll push you to conform. They want diversity, but then they'll push you to conform, and then they're back at that same step one, and how do we figure out the same stagnant issues that we've been doing the same thing, with, but I don't know. It is a balancing act. One, better communicate with people, understand everyone else's backgrounds, and I guess be bilingual in a sense, but do not lose the value that you actually stepped into the industry with, because that's what's actually going to solve the problems that have been around for years.
Nice. Tia.
So I am different in many ways in corporate America. So I am marginalized in a lot of ways, I'll say. When I first started in my career, I had young tagged, not so much now because I'm an old lady, but I am Black, I am female, I am tatted up, I am a lesbian. Let's get real, like strike, 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 right? So I've always been a bit bullish, and you take all of me or you take none of me. However, I'm a big believer in the fact that you have to learn the game and learn how to play the game well before you can change the game. And that does not mean conforming. That just means observing and figuring out what's happening. Who can I trust? Who should I align to? Who's going to take me to where I need to go? Who's a snake, etc. Figure those things out. While you're doing those things, embody all the things that we've mentioned earlier: being flexible, being empathetic, reaching out to other teams, building your personal brand as a non-threat. Now you have the rapport, and then you can be you can change the game. So that's always been my play. Slide in there, not fit in, right? Do you, but fit in. Don't lose yourself, and then blow everything up and change the game. Today I walk into a room, people don't know what to make of me, but they know exactly who I am when I walk out. I am unapologetically me, period. And if you have an issue with any element, aspect of who I am, then your organization is not the organization for me. And if you sell me something and I get in and you try to push me to do things that are not me, well, I'm out. I am not going to lose who I am, where I come from, and everything that I've worked so hard to build to sell out for a paycheck. It's not worth it to me. And I know that it is not easy, to take that kind of stance. And it wasn't for me early in my career, but I had to tell myself, I will always be Black. I will always be a woman. So I'm going to focus on controlling the controllables. So because I'm Black and because I'm a woman, that's not going to change. Let's table that. The value that I bring to organizations can absolutely change. My education does not have to remain static. My level of certifications does not have to remain static. The way I'm able to communicate, my reach does not have to remain static. So to the point of being so great you can't be ignored, that's always been my mission. And that is what has enabled me to be exactly who I am, because you can't tell me I'm not qualified. You may not want to tell me what your problem really is, but what it won't be is that I'm not qualified for this job. And that gives me the confidence to be exactly who I am in all things.
She almost took me to church for a little bit. I was about to
I'm sorry.
into that.
I'm a football coach too, so I can pre-game locker room speech. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm 100% everything Tia said. I believe so. Carla Henry wrote a book, and I read it when I was probably around 24. I think it's Expect to Win. And one of the things she talks about all the time is just being authentically you, right? And for a while, I didn't know what that really authentic was. I thought I had to code switch. And honestly, at this point in my career, I don't believe in code switching at all. Like, I just don't believe in it. You're gonna get me. This is what we have. This is what we're going to be, right? And I can't be the best person I am and try to worry about your feelings and how I need to not be Black around you. Because as Tia said, I'm Black, right? I am a Jamaican American who would literally, if I hear reggae music, I may get up in the middle of the boardroom and I may start dancing. That's what's going to happen. And everybody understands that about me, right? And so, and if everyone understands who you are, you don't have to worry about hiding anything else, because then I can be free to be the brilliant person I am. And I want everyone else to understand that they can now be free to be the brilliant person who they are as well. And I talked earlier about mental health. We can't be, as Black people, we can't be in mental bondage and be great at the same time. We have to figure it out, right? And if you want to be great, you have to get out of that mental bondage. So for me, as a Black woman, I think the biggest pivotal point that I had in my career is when another Black woman tried to get in my career. And it hurt. I cried. I bawled my eyes out, right? Because I graduated from Spelman. So Spelman is a community where we believe in supporting each other. So I came out very naive, and I thought every person that was melanated was for me, and I was going to be for them, right? And that's what it was. I was going to be for them. And so I don't know if you guys remember the movie Pretty Woman. At the end of the movie, there was a homeless guy walking down the street. He was like, "Hey, you, what's your dream? Hey, what's your dream?" Like, that was me, right? I was just going around, you know, trying to figure out what everyone wanted to be. And I got stabbed in the back. And so and that was a pivotal moment for me to realize that I have to be authentically myself. I have to know who the snakes are, as Tia said. I have to recognize them, and I still have to be able to maneuver and get the job done without getting bit by the snake. Right. And so that is what I come to the table with. And honestly, if it's someone who has a problem with me being a Black woman, has a problem with me, you know, dancing, has a problem with me every now and then going boop boop boop, like, that's just what it is, right? And they're gonna have to get over that. And if they can't get over it, then that's their problem, that they're gonna have to figure that out. And I may have to exit stage left and just be what it is. And I could take my greatness and the brilliance somewhere else.
Correct. Paul and I were actually, when we talked this week, we actually hit on this, and I want Paul to share, you know, his perspective on code switching, because one of the attendees also asked about code switching. So I'm glad that was brought up, Octavia. Paul, can you share what your thoughts are about code switching? And I know you've been at this for years, so you're just like, here, this is what it is, kind of thing.
So
with the heavy side before he even begins, so you know.
As I sigh deeply here. So I will frame it this way. That in this industry, certainly, right, you know, there's all the challenges around getting into the front door, right? There's all these challenges around encountering people who are set in their own mediocrity, right? And they are hell-bent on keeping you from challenging that mediocrity and certainly making them uncomfortable, right? And so it's not so much that you're shedding your identity, but I think one of the other panelists had mentioned, it's more around paying attention and being observant, right? You have to understand your enemy in order to defeat them, right? Many, for the military folks certainly that are on the call, you study your enemy, you study their tactics, their movements, things that are common, things that they do all the time, and you use that to build a strategy to either circumvent them or to run over them and get where you want to be. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but that is the world that we live in. And, if anyone is expecting for any of this to be sugar-coated coming out of my mouth, you're probably on the wrong call. The reality of it is that anything that we want in this space, we're going to have to take it. No one's going to hand it to you. No one's going to say, hey, here, come on over to this corner, and I got some secrets for you. That's not going to happen for you. What's instead is you're going to come into this field, you're going to observe, you're going to understand that there are people that are in places and in roles where they have no business being. And you're going to be twice as smart as them, and you're going to be completely and utterly annoyed that you are twice as smart as them.
We call them mediocre Mets, right, Paul? Because that's what Kirsten loves. Mediocre Mets.
Right? It's mediocre, period. And the sadness of all of this is that a lot of our people have been programmed in believing that because someone is white, somehow that makes it right, that they are better than you just because of their skin color. I can tell you, having been at this as long as I have, that is absolutely not the case. There are many cases where I'm sitting in a room and I'm listening to what's happening and I'm like, come again? And the conviction is serious, right? It is, they are just loud and wrong, right? And so I think that, you don't have to shed being Black, right, in order to work in these spaces, nor should you feel that you have to. What you do have to be, though, is smart. You have to be cunning. You have to be observant. You have to see the world around you, and you have to see it for what it is. Don't think that we're all the same, that we're all one big happy family. We're not. The difference is where the strength is, right? We don't have to be white in order to compete with white. What we have to be is our own authentic selves. If we can do that, we will push past and blow past any gatekeeping, any doors or boulders that are thrown in our path, or any of those things. But if we start spending our time and energy trying to be like whomever, mediocre Matt, then we're not going to be any better than mediocre Matt. He has his privilege to fall back on. You don't. And so if that is the reality in any given situation, he is going to win out on that. Because his privilege is going to put him in a position to win that. So you don't want to be like mediocre Matt. You want to be like you. And if that means that mediocre Matt gets his feelings hurt, hey, if you're scared, go to church.
I'm real glad this is being recorded because Paul just gave us a master's class on everything. I appreciate that, Paul. And I love the points of just not forgetting who you are. And I think all the Black women on the call also talked about being unapologetically Black. And some of the conversations I've had since all of these movements have started with some of the white people that I know have been, asking me, how is things going with this movement? And the thing that we got to remember and remind people is I've been Black my whole life. I love being Black. And this isn't the movement. This is who I am. This is the skin color that I have and I always will have. And it's important for people to understand that where I'm coming from and where I'm going and the mentality that I have. This is not a movement. This is not something that turns on and off. This is not something that is a process. We're Black. We're going to be Black. And everybody sees that we're Black. And it's important for us to be proud of that. And I think we can all learn from Black women about being unapologetically Black and being unapologetically who we are, because they have been the leaders forever in this space about being who they are. And Paul, salute to you. That was a master's class. I'm glad this is recorded. I'm gonna go back and watch that again. Amen.
Dondi mentioned earlier in the chat that, Black men have to do better in supporting Black women in this profession as well. And that's something that I think is very key because sometimes we're all we got. Like sometimes it's just one Black woman and sometimes it's just one Black man for the whole company. So if we can't work together, to help each other up, like, then what are we here for? What are we here for? So Dondi, what's your advice to the Black men in the profession about how they can be better at uplifting the Black women in the profession?
I would just say right here on this call, how many attendees do we have right now?
We have 108, it says.
So right here on this call right now, let's just form a pact, right? If you're in a meeting with a Black woman, that Black woman deserves that seat at the table. She's probably had to work 10 times harder than you to get that seat at the table. And if you hear her voice in any way being drowned out or being ignored, you have a duty to stop the meeting, and amplify it. And that's just something that I personally do. Like, and once you start actively trying to notice this, you will notice it happens very frequently. And it's been so normalized. Correct. That I want everyone to just like over the next month or so, like especially in a most people are working from home right now and doing a lot of Zooms and Teams calls, but just notice it. But when you see it happen, it's okay to stop and say, hey, Terran just made a really, really good point. And before we move on, I wanna go back to what Terran just said. Terran, can you explain that one more time, please? And that goes a long way. And it's not just an ode to Black women and commanding that level of respect for Black women, but it also hurts security when a really, really smart Black woman that has worked 10 times harder than you to get to where she's gotten, voice is getting drowned out, and all these, men are just moving full steam ahead, thinking they're solving the problem, and the Black woman just said the answer, but someone and drowned her out. So it hurts security. It hurts the organization. So like, let's just make a pact right now that that's what we'll do. You know what I mean, as black men, and then teach other black men to do that.
I like that advice. Cedric, you got any advice how we can improve that?
Yes, Dondi really said it all. Just being more vocal, especially if you like, kind of like he mentioned, if you see that in the meeting you're in, or in the team, or in a company, that's like you guys are the only ones there. To me, it just makes sense to build relationships, kind of find out how you can support her efforts, and being willing to fight the fights. You know that. Maybe she doesn't have the strength to fight. Maybe she's tired of fighting. Being willing to step in, and silence those voices, because as you guys already mentioned, a lot of times the people who are silencing the voices of the black women who have the answers, they're mediocre themselves, right? They may not even have the credentials or the experience themselves. So being willing to step in and confront that on her behalf, like, I 100% agree with what Nandi said.
Wayne, Chris?
Yeah, you know, I agree totally with what everyone was saying. You know, I know a lot of times for any other kind of committees that I bring up or any type of engagement that we do, I make sure that, you know, we bring in a good amount of black women to lead those initiatives, right? Especially being in the security field, you know, we're underrepresented. So we want to make sure that we get the opportunity to, you know, put those people at the forefront, right? You know, just like AJ said, you know, make sure that we have those people in meetings, make sure we amplify those things. I know that's something that I've done, you know, entering my career into, you know, being more vocal and being the Black Employee Network. You know, really how you amplify people is something that I've been taking on myself and making sure that we get that across the message toward the community. So I think, you know, if everyone does that, you know, we can really move forward with, you know, bring uplifting black women and also uplifting each other as we grow.
Yeah, and I would also say I came from a matriarchal family. My grandma, she ran everything. Rest in peace. And I've been black my whole life, but I will never wholeheartedly understand what it means to be a black woman. And so always being there, being always in a support role, never feeling like you have to speak for a black woman, but always being there when she needs help, when she needs support, when she needs an amplifier, when she needs a sounding board. That's what we can do as black men.
Yes, I love all of this advice. I hope your attendees are taking notice and taking notes on this, because it's very warming and it feels good to have that support, and especially when you speak up about it. So I definitely appreciate all of this feedback. I wanted to, Dondi, I wanted to ask you, because we, as far as lawyers, go ahead.
I read this article that talks about, you know, hey, black men are the, you know, white men of the black community. So it's not just about black women, but it's also about, you know, taking on the duty of uplifting and amplifying the voices of our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community as well. That's vitally important. You know, I just want to express that. So all the stuff that, you know, we just talked about, like when it comes to black women, it also applies to, because especially for men and for our male members of the LBGT, that if it's too heterosexual, the other one is gay, why aren't y'all connected? Like, it's time to leave that out. It's time to leave that out the door. So we got to ride for our brothers and sisters in that community as well. And take your ego at the door. No time for it at all.
Correct. That is vital as well. That's very important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that, you know, a lot of times people see us as one-dimensional, and that is not something that we clearly are not. We will never be that. So that needs to be just completely erased from everyone's mind, because that's not who we are. But Dondi, I wanted to ask you specifically, because you're a lawyer, and you're in the cybersecurity space. And I haven't seen how I have so many questions, but I'm gonna just stick to one big one. How is it being a lawyer in the cybersecurity community? Is that something that's on the rise? because I haven't seen quite a few that practice in that area, but I know that it's there. So do you have any advice for maybe if someone is interested in practicing in that space so that they can, you know, have some guidance? And I know you said that they can reach out to you. So
yeah, just know that it is a thing. So I remember it being incredibly lonely because like the way I ended up going to law school was when I was working as an intel analyst driving offensive cyber operations. A lot of legal issues would come up, and I think it might have been, I think Tia may have said, you know, you only have one time for something to go over my head. And I remember walking in a room full of lawyers and giving my intelligence analysis, and the lawyers just eating it alive. And the conversation went all the way over my head. And this was back in probably 2004. And from that moment, I knew that, you know, the law and cybersecurity was going to intersect, and it was going to be professionals that needed, you know, both skills. And so that's where my journey of cybersecurity law started. But you know, for anyone that's interested, unlike when I went to law school, it is definitely a domain now. There's no shortage of work. Very highly sought after combination of skills. If you need any guidance, I'm here. I posted my LinkedIn. But just know that, you know, you're not crazy for wanting to combine those two, and you won't. I don't think you will struggle with finding a job. So, you know, I encourage everyone to move forward if that's something they're interested in.
great, thank you. So I got you guys. It's almost 8 o'clock, and I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. But I have three more questions. But I'll try and combine them so that when you answer, you can tackle all three. Actually, I'll just stick to two. Tell me one book that really changed your life, whether it's personally or professionally. And I know we have some allies listening on the call. So tell them your call to action. What is your call to action for them on how they can be of service to ensuring that they also make sure that if they have Black people in their organization, that they work closely with, are friends with, it don't even necessarily have to be in cybersecurity, let's say. How can they help them and be, you know, an ally to them and make sure that, you know, they're helping them improve, especially if you have a friend. But specifically, tell me how they can, what is your call to action for them? And then tell me a book that really changed your perspective and your trajectory of your life. And we're gonna start with Terran. And then just popcorn, Terran.
All right, so really there's no one book that I consider like the most impactful. I do like autobiographies. I like to understand how people, you know, have come up, you know, the stories, you know, why they are the way they are, what they have to deal with, and how they, you know, have overcome, right? As far as like call to action for the talent acquisition personnel?
Just normal, just allies, our non-Black counterparts, Black counterparts that, you know, we all say that all skin folk and kinfolk kind of people, we can loop those in there too. What can you say to them right now that you think would be helpful to them to do better as it regards to Black cybersecurity professionals?
Yeah, I mean, basically adopt the understanding that diversity is an asset, you know, and what it can actually bring to the table. You know, I think it's upon, you know, it's up to us to be strong in what we know, you know, as we negotiate and as we, you know, think we need to network. First things first, know the job. Be good at the job. I think somebody said, be so great that they can't deny you. That pretty much sums up my sentiment on how we should approach things. So, but for them, you know, diversity is definitely an asset, and understand that.
Nice. Who are we going to next, Taryn?
Wayne.
Yeah, so I'll probably say one of the books that changed my life was Deviant Behavior. I read it when I was doing my minor in sociology, which was interesting because at that point I was in trouble with the law. So it's a pretty interesting fact that I kind of learned how society thinks when you are domestic violence or any type of thing that kind of really changed my trajectory in life early on. But I would actually agree with what Terran said about, how you approach things. You really want to be the best at what you do, because that's going to allow you to propel yourself into getting into succession plannings where you wouldn't be able to normally get access to, right? So people are going to be able to start to look at you and say, okay, I know that person wants to be, CISO or wants to be lead or director. Am I putting them in the right perspective to move to the next level? Do they have the right backing from me in those type of situations here? So you want to be able to be to step out on your forefront, exactly say who you are, and this is who I am, this is what I want to be, and not be afraid to leave. A lot of times, as I always tell people, I'm not tied to any company, right? I'm tied to the work that I do. I love the work that I do. So I can move here, I can move there, I can move anywhere. I love what I do. And you should have the same mindset as you move forward, or start your own business, right? You're your own boss. You do whatever you say you want to do, right? We have to start thinking of that mindset of moving forward, of being our own boss. Oh, I will pitch it to Cedric.
Thanks, Wayne. I'd say a book for me that really changed my life was The Spirit of Leadership by Miles Monroe. Unfortunately, he's passed now, but when he was alive, he was both a pastor and a government leader. And what that book did for me was, I was at a point in my career where I was frustrated because I felt like people who had the management titles in the company that I was at were not really good leaders. And I felt like they were actually ripping the organization apart as opposed to things that they could have been doing constructively. So it was a low point for me, and I picked this book up, and what it did for me is it actually helped me look within to see the leader that I am and how I can actually influence without having a title. And what it did is it helped bring the confidence out for me and help me build a strategy where, even though I didn't have a management or leadership title, it gave me some strategies to start influencing upward in our organization and seeing positive change. So that book was huge for me. I definitely recommend that. In terms of allies, I guess the thing I would ask for to partner up with us is accountability for meaningful change in your respective organizations. With the recent events, it's been great that a lot of companies have come out and put out statements about Black Lives Matter, and I think that's a good initial step. But for me personally, I'm still watching to see, what does your C-level board look like? Are there, if your whole board has no Black people and yet you're saying Black Lives Matter, to me those don't equate, right? So I ask that allies kind of hold their management responsible for having a Black voice in the boardrooms. That's where decisions are made. And if no one there is Black, how can you really say that Black Lives Matter? That's just my personal view on it. So doing things like that, making sure that the representation is there and that you understand the challenges that are facing Blacks, especially when there's a major issue going on and we have to process that and deal with work and deal with home life. Some days, it's tough, right? So just being able to understand where we are and partner up with us. So I guess next I'll pass it over to Paul.
Y'all just wanted to hear me talk about this, didn't you? So books. I don't. I'm kind of like Terran. I don't have a particular book necessarily that has driven me to do much of what I do. Although I do have a tendency to read books about slavery and things like that, and the reason why is I want to understand the systemic racism that exists. Where did it come from, right? How has that impacted us over time? Because again, if you don't know your history, you can't determine your present, and you certainly can't affect your future. And so I spend a lot of time reading through that kind of stuff. Takeaway as far as our allies. So depending on what kind of ally you are, and let's talk about this for a minute. There are people who are allies for the sake of feel good, right? That I want to do something for Black people because I think that Black people are neat, or Black people need my help, or or what have you. Allies like that, we don't need you. And because you are not helping us, you're not helping the situation and the circumstance. If you are an ally and you are willing to yield some of your privilege to my benefit, then you're the ally that I can use, right? The feel good doesn't do anything for me, right? The sentiment that you feel my pain, that you recognize what kind of struggle I have, you have no idea what kind of struggle we have every day. Just being Black, then that's all. Just being Black. Forget the cybersecurity piece of it. Just being Black in general, and so if you truly want to be an ally, you need to ask yourself, am I doing this for their benefit or am I doing it for mine? The latter, we don't need. It's a waste of your time and it's a waste of ours. We just need to be pointed in a direction. We just need to have a crack in that door. We'll go through it on our own. So if you want to be an ally, a further ally, just get the hell out the way and we'll go right through that door and keep it moving.
Who are you kicking it to, Paul?
I will kick it to Chris.
As far as books, I would say The Millionaire Next Door. So somebody on the call is Charles Nwatu, and we talk about Black economics all the time. And I read The Millionaire Next Door driving from Baltimore, Maryland to Atlanta, Georgia. And when I stepped outside that car, I was patched. Like as a person, I was patched. And I changed everything about how I spent, everything how I invested, how I saved. And I feel like as a people, I really want to see generational wealth become a thing in the Black community. Because it's not just about us, it's about our kids, it's about our grandkids, our great grandkids. I want to see that continue on. And so I would say take that book to heart, read it. I mean, it's a little extreme, but it definitely will give you some nuggets going forward. And as far as our allies, I would say once we get our seat at the table, there are going to be conversations that we're not going to be present for that will take place. And I will say that when those conversations start and they slide down this negative side of the conversation, say something. Say something, because we're not going to be there for those conversations. And I know they happen, but just say something. I know you will, and I know you'll have the courage to do that. But that's all I would say.
Who you got next, Chris?
Yeah, let me popcorn over to Tia.
All right, I'm nervous because at the risk of burning my credibility to the ground, I have to admit that I am not a book reader. People make book recommendations to me all the time. I don't love reading, but also I'm hard-headed. So what I want to know is, okay, fine, what's the title? What's the book about? But I'm not going to read the book because I don't want to know that person's perspective of it. I'm going to take that title and figure out what that means to me. I'm just weird like that. Although, Chris, I'm going to read the book that you talked about because that is something that I'm really interested in getting better at. And the title alone is going to get me nowhere there. But I will say that So Good They Can't Ignore You is a book. And a friend was like, you should go read that. And I said, okay. And then I started thinking about the title and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that. So I didn't read the book, but I set out on that path and here I am. So just the title alone, I would say, just changed my trajectory quite a bit. In terms of allies, like a lot of great things have been said. And I was like, oh my goodness, somebody please popcorn to me soon because there's not going to be anything left to say. But I see a lot of reactive action, just, oh, we have to do something. Let's just do something. And a lot of it is not necessarily the right thing. And so I think it's important to take a step back and understand what the issue is, why the issue exists, so you can then have a better understanding of what the solutions should look like. And then by the way is just because we're Black does not mean we have the answers. I am not comfortable speaking on behalf of all Black people in terms of what should be done because my experiences are that. They're just my experiences and they don't represent the broader population. So answers from me are not going to suffice in terms of helping everyone else. So in short, do some homework and get some professionals.
Certainly fair, certainly fair. Who we popcorning to? AJ?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, we could do that.
All right, so for a book, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, probably one of the most impactful books I've ever read. Really frustrating book because it was written back during the Reconstruction era, and you see a lot of the same concepts and themes that Carter G. Woodson was talking about today. And it helps put into context what we're going through today, the frustrations that we have today, and why they're here. So I definitely encourage everyone to read that book or listen to it, however you get your books, because it's going to help you understand why the situation it is today. And as Tia talked about earlier, the education system is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. And there's a reason why it's broken. And Carter G. Woodson dives really deep into that concept in that book as well. And for the allies, where do I start? First things first, let's stop complaining about a pipeline. If we look at this panel right here, there's no pipeline issue. If we go to our HBCUs, there's no pipeline issue. If we just look out across the field, there's no pipeline issue. We have the qualified people, the hungry people to do the job. So if you're in a hiring role as an ally, which most of our allies are and we are not, hire people that look like me. Hire Black women. Hire them now because they're qualified. Don't hire them because they're Black. Hire us because we're qualified and we can do the job, and we're going to do it better than the mediocre mats. So stop complaining about a pipeline problem. The performative statements are great, but we need to see real change, and real change starts with hiring practices. If 13% of the population is Black, 13% of your organization should also be Black, because we are qualified. The other thing with allies that I would say is, like I mentioned earlier, we've been Black our whole lives. This isn't new for us. This isn't a new thing. So stop coming and talking to us as if this is a new environment. This is a new thing that we're experiencing. We've been experiencing this our entire lives. You're just now being awake to it. So it's not on us to teach you what it's like to be Black. It's not on us to teach you what it's like to not be racist. It's not on us to teach you how to treat us in a conference. It's not on us for us to tell you every single time we experience something. You saw the same thing that I experienced it, and you didn't mention it. An example of this is in my past job, we would go and travel, and one of the things we did was book a hotel or an Airbnb, and I tried to book an Airbnb for us when we were going to San Francisco for one of our clients, and I got declined. No reason at all. The host said, oh, it was because he didn't have enough reviews. I had more reviews than my boss, who ended up booking the Airbnb. And he was booked right away immediately. But my boss didn't say anything about that. And he didn't say anything until recently, that we spoke 3 months ago. But he knew that happened 2 years ago. So allies got to stop being quiet. You got to speak up when you see it. You know what's going on. You understand what we're going through. So speak up, and no longer is it okay to be silent. The performative statements don't really matter. I think it's great that we're seeing Black Lives Matter. But the other last point, I'm sorry, I got a lot for allies. But the last point is I've talked to a few folks, and they're like, oh, I just can't get with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a political organization. I don't know where the money goes. But the thing that we have to understand is, when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about my life. I'm talking about my kids' life. So I don't care my life is not political. My life is not a political organization, and there's no money coming into my life. My Black life matters. And that's what should matter to you. And that all of these Black lives on this call matter. And no more talking about the political organization or the thing that you would disagree with, where the money goes or who runs that organization. I don't care. I'm worried about my life, and I'm worried about my son's life and how he and my daughter's life, of how they act, and as being Black kids and Black individuals in this world. So for allies, let's stop talking about the organizations. Let's stop talking about all this stuff. Talk about your individual people that you know Black people, and you talk to Black people, and think about their life. Does their life matter? That's all that matters. And that's what I got. I'll throw it over to Octavia. Did she already go?
No, you're good. So I think I mentioned the book that actually changed my life, and what I thought about my career was by Carla Harris, Expect to Win. And I've read several books after that, but that still is a pivotal book for me. And it deals with identity and what you think about yourself and what you tell yourself, and kind of gets rid of that self-talk. that prevents us from doing a lot of things. When it comes to allies, you know, I really, 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 really want them to stop making excuses that we don't exist, right? I'm a member of an organization called IT Senior Management Forum, where it is pure Black excellence and Black CIOs and Black CTOs and, you know, those who are, and people are sending those who want to aspire into leadership to this organization to really have executive leadership and things of that nature. And so to say that you don't know or don't know how to find Black senior leaders, Google, that's your friend. I mean, there are several organizations, there are several people, even if it's the people who you met. That's why I made the statement earlier. Speak to, you know, network outside of the cyber and the technology industry where people who are doing some other things. So someone asked me to say it again, it's IT Senior Management Forum, right? So the IT Senior Management Forum is an organization, a nonprofit, specifically for to have Black leadership and show Black excellence. I'm also a part of another organization that are really bringing Black excellence to cybersecurity. So there, you know someone, right? So let's just really, really, really kind of focus on looking at where you are in your value proposition and don't make the excuse. And as Paul said earlier, get out the way, right? Just get out the way and let us be, right? We're not trying to do anything else but just be excellent the way that we are. So we say Black lives matter, but our Black careers matter as well. I have no idea who had not gone, so.
Dondi.
Oh, I'm not Dr. Gordon, it's a Dondi. We hadn't heard from Dondi.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a book nerd, so I'm gonna be a little bit weird for a second, because the life-changing book that I had actually was two books that go hand in hand. So I never mentioned one of them without the other. And those are the books Fishing for Fools and The Art of Thinking Clearly. And those books start with a premise that as human beings, we are irrational. We are really, really poor naturally at decision making. And we all suffer from subconscious biases, or we all make logical fallacies, and thinking is like really truly thinking and making smart decisions is a learned skill. And if you don't take the time to, you know, to sharpen that skill, then, you know, there's a chance that at some point in life, it'll lead to something catastrophic. And so like those two books for me were life changing because it teaches me like how I naturally think and like the mistakes and the common flaws that people make when they're making decisions, when they're thinking. So those two books, like I not only have read them once, but like I pull them out like constantly. Like I never start reading them. It's like the Bible and those two books. And then, you know, for our allies, you know, what I would say is I think a lot of allies are anxious to do something. They want to get out there and do something, but they like naturally, you know, go to their, you know, what they're used to doing, which is, you know, going from their own community and jumping in another community. And now you're colonizing Black inequality because you haven't even thought about what's going on in your own community. From my white friends, I can tell you that they weren't afraid. They were vulnerable enough to admit that they all had racist family members. They all know racist friends. They all see racist posts on their timeline. And before you go jumping in, you know, ready to conquer the world in support of Black people, what we really need most is for you to stay in your, you know, within your own community. You know, call it out when you see it, check it when you see it. Don't tolerate it. Don't be friends with people like that. Like if you're friends with someone that's racist, then you're racist too. Do not tolerate it. Have a 0% policy on that, and ride for us. If you want to ride for us in your own community. You know what I mean? And until that's done, then we cannot pass go and we cannot collect $200.
I love all of this advice, and I appreciate, you know, each and every one of you sharing your perspective. And I'll just add to this something that I mentioned earlier in my talk with Biohacking Village at DEF CON was that, you know, go outside of yourself. If you already, you know, have a working relationship or have a pretty decent relationship with someone that's a Black cybersecurity professional, reach out to them. And when you reach out to them, don't expect anything back from them as well, because just because you reach out, they're not obligated to answer anything that you have to say to them. Okay. So you have to remember that while you may be trying to reach out and, tell them that you are here for them, they're still dealing with some stuff as well, or they may not want to talk to you as well. So have that understanding that if you're going to reach out, do it because that's what you really genuinely want to do and you really want to understand, not because you're going to feel good, like the panelist said. We don't need you if you just want to feel good. We need you to actually do, and not just talk about it. We don't need that performative actions. We don't need it. And so do it with genuine intentions, and do it without expecting anything in return. Because I'm not giving you a cookie for, making sure that I'm treated as a human. I'm not giving you a cookie. That's just not going to happen. So with that, I want to, stop here. It's pretty late over here in Jersey. It's getting a little dark as well. But I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for sitting with me and sharing your perspective and answering these questions. To all of the attendees, this has been recorded. It will be shared so that you can share it with whomever you decide to share it with. But if anyone has any questions, I'll take a few. I'll do it for 10 minutes and then I'll let everybody go, because it is Saturday night and people have families and things that they're doing. If you have a question, just raise your hand and I will, or you can drop it in the chat if not.
Hey, while you're getting questions, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. I mean, even for me, I learned so much from the panelists here. It was inspiring. Like, I'm fired up, ready to go start some business. I don't know what I want to do. I'm ready to do something, but this was really great. So thank you.
You're very, 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 very welcome. I'm humbled myself because I promise you, I probably mentioned it to quite a few of you. This was just me sharing something off the top of my head, and I got a lot of good feedback on saying, hey, this is something I really want to see. And, I promise you, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I got 30 people submitted. I can't tell 30 people no, and I can't just choose 10 people, one, and I can't have 30 of us on a call together trying to answer questions. It's just not feasible. Like, it's just not, and we won't get anything done. And so I had to break it down into 3 sessions. And so this is the first part 1, and part 2 will be out next week, and then part 3 will be out the week after that. And so I look forward to that. Russell asks, can anyone discuss cyber management and leading cyber staff? Any tips or suggestions for that?
I'll take a stab at that. I guess I need a little bit more information about what the premise of the question is. So, although I'll like I said, I'll take a stab at it. So, when you are leading cyber staff, I mean, obviously the key to this is you have to recognize what the strengths of your team members are, right? Everyone, an analyst is not an analyst, or an engineer is not an engineer, not an engineer. And so when you are putting together your team, there are going to be strengths that certain people have. Some people are going to be better at documentation. Some people are going to be better at, you sitting them over in the corner and letting them do their thing. Some people are going to be kind of your jacks of all trades and any of the striations in between. Being an effective leader means that you are cognizant of the contributions that each one of the people on your team contribute, and that you are basically using those to the benefit of whatever your mission is, right? Whatever your charge is. And you're also giving those people opportunities to be their best selves, right? To shine and bring forward what they have to offer. micromanaging goes away, what went away years ago as being an effective method of managing people. So again, give people accountability and then hold them accountable for it, right? And it's a degree of empowering. It allows them to feel like that you have trust in them to complete a task or complete, whatever activity it is that you've delegated to them. And it gives them a sense of ownership. If you give them a sense of ownership, then you guys work better together as a team.
Nice. I got a really random, this question is actually pretty, I wasn't expecting it. How do you feel about Black people engaging in nepotism to help us progress in the industry? Anyone can take a stab. I got some laughs here.
Listen, I really honestly don't think there's a such thing right now, right? So we can't sit here and be like, oh, well, we're gonna shut the door on our friends. We're not gonna help our friends. Everybody else helping their people, why we can't help ours?
Right.
So there's no such thing as nepotism. We're done. We're good. Everybody good? We're good.
Like Paul said earlier, know your enemy. What do everybody else do? What do the people that don't look like us do? Are they not looking out for those that look like them or came from their background or went to their school or were in their fraternity or sorority? They're looking out for each other, so we need to look out for each other.
Let me make another point. I remember the first time I went to a company and I was being introduced to everybody, and there was like 5 Black people about to go to lunch. And I was like, hey, I want to go. They was like, oh, it's too many. Listen, I'm going to tell y'all this much. Nobody says anything about a whole bunch of white people going to lunch together. Nobody says anything about a whole bunch of Asians going to lunch together or anything else. Y'all need to stop doing that to each other. Stop it.
I can't wait for the day, and this may be because I've been sipping wine the whole time, but I cannot wait for the day when I see somebody on LinkedIn post that this tech organization exists where there's only one white person on the C-level executive suite and they're in that diversity and inclusion role.
Exactly.
I want to see people complaining that there's only one white person in the C-suite in a diversity role, because that's where we are. Right now, if you look at C-suites, we are in diversity and inclusion roles. So let's go ahead and get those same complaints going by looking out for each other.
That's right.
Jay, what's really in that cup?
No lies detected. I mean, no lies detected. I'm all over. If at the end of the day, if we don't do for us, right, we can expect for our allies and, friends and all this other stuff. We can expect all of that. But if we as a community, right, and as a culture don't pull together to move us forward, no one else is going to do that work for us. And I know that, it's real easy to sit back and say, well, if this white person didn't do this to me, I wouldn't be able to go forward, or X, Y, or Z. I'm not going to say that they're not contributing to that, but there's certainly some piece of this that we have to own, right? We cannot just sit back and say, well, because some white person is preventing from doing this, I just can't do anything. That's not how this works, right? That's not how it works. And if we continue to do that, we're going to continue to swirl around in the bottom of that bucket. We're not going to ever come out of the top of it. And so own your shit.
Heard.
Own what you own and keep it moving. At the end of the day, if you are not doing what you need to do, if we are not doing what we need to do as a community, we can't reach out and point at anyone else and say, you're preventing me from doing X. We're not doing the shit we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. So, there's plenty of blame that we can push to the other side of that fence, but we need to start looking at ourselves and figure out what kind of work we need to do to go ahead and push on up that hill. And I don't have wine in my cup.
I was going to ask you to go ahead and this cup. I was going to ask.
That is not how I roll at all. I like it spirits. Me and wine don't do nothing. The only thing wine does is make me mad. That's it.
Yeah, I think
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wayne.
Oh, okay. I think AJ made a good point about making sure that, you know, you got to help everyone else out, right? You know, as you can see, there's a lot of companies out there that they get with their friends, and, you know, my friend went to this company, so I'm gonna try to bring that business in, right? We need to do the exact same thing for all the local businesses and all the Black-owned businesses as well. So, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to that Black-owned company and bring them as a contractor or a supplier, right? We got to be able to start to branch out that way and make sure that we bring those people in and start to build that pipeline, right? So that we can get more credibility along those businesses as well. You know, that's one of the things that I see common now is that, you know, we need to start bringing in those type of things, because there's a lot of big push for organizations to, you know, get in contact with all these Black organizations, right? You know, I want to be a part of NESB, or I want to be a part of, you know, some of the name brand ones that everyone always go to, right? But there are 1,000 other businesses just like that that need our support as well. So we need to really extend out and branch out and bring those people along as well too.
I definitely attest to how the white people definitely bring on their people. I had a manager reach out to me, and he literally told me, like, yeah, I usually just, he's like, this is my first time reaching out to somebody out the blue. I saw your talk and I wanted to, you know, reach out to you and see how I can help you. And me, I was like, okay, cool, let's chat. And he was honest and said, you know, normally I just look through my contacts and check and see who I know and reach out to them and say, hey, I'm hiring. And that's how they get their positions filled. So I definitely agree with Octavia on this whole, there is no nepotism. You're reaching back into your community and helping those who want to be in the industry succeed in the industry.
Can I throw something out there?
Yes.
I do not have enough time in the world to unpack this right now, but I need everybody that does not understand what imposter syndrome is to understand what imposter syndrome is, because it is a thing. And I'm going to jump on the mediocre Matt bandwagon. The reason that mediocre Matt goes into that interview with confidence and gets that job is because he feels entitled to that job. The reason that a lot of our people go into those interviews and don't get those jobs, you know, in the cases that are not unfair, is because we have imposter syndrome. Am I really qualified for this job? Should I really be applying? I mean, that guy, he's been doing it like 5 years longer than I have. You cannot go into an interview confident feeling that way. So learn imposter syndrome, understand imposter syndrome, and rebuke imposter syndrome like the devil. Because it will destroy your confidence and you will never get to where you want to be. That's it.
Got it.
And I think, Tia, the thing that helps, at least me, I mean, I still feel like I experience imposter syndrome to this day. I think in the tech industry, it's hard to not experience it because of the technologies that are changing. Everything is moving and you just have so much to learn that you never feel like you know enough. But the thing that helps me is talking to other people that are in the same positions or have been through the same things. And that helps me get over it. But don't think that because you got over imposter syndrome for that interview, it's not going to creep back up. It's going to come back. You're going to feel that same feelings again, but that's when you go and lean into your community, lean into this nepotism that we're talking about, and get with people that know how you feel exactly and how to help you get over that. Because you're right, the imposter syndrome is real. And it's about mental health, like Octavia has been talking about. You have to understand that it's real so that you can combat it and you can know what to do and how to get over that, to have that confidence to go into that interview. And it never matters how much you know, never matters how many certs you have or how many degrees you have. You're still going to feel that way because we know we have to perform 3 times better than mediocre Matt. We have to do more than them. So you have to talk to more of us that look like each other so that you can get over that imposter syndrome. So 100% to you. I'm glad you brought that up because it's real. It doesn't matter how far or how high up I get. I've always experienced imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I'm with it too. I mean, I say rebuke it, but I mean, I'm in the process of consistently rebuking it. I'm not over it.
That's it. Consistently. Yep. It's every day.
That's what you have to do, is constantly rebuke it. I will tell you, you know, having been at this as long as I have, it will come to pass. You will get to a point to where that number of dots will start to cease to exist. You know, you will get comfortable in your own skin, right? And you have to. You know, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, what you know, no one can take away from you. So you have to own that and be comfortable with the fact that you know it, right? If you're walking into an interview, you're walking into a boardroom, doesn't matter. You know what you know, right? Own that, because no one else is gonna own that for you. You know, you are walking into an environment potentially where people are expecting for you to fail, right? They're expecting for you to self-sabotage. Don't do that. If they can be loud and wrong, you go in there and you can still be loud. Don't be so wrong, right? But certainly you can be just as loud and forceful. And if they're loud and wrong and your message is, is resonating, your message is crushing their messages, then you will see some of the yield, and it will help you with that imposter syndrome over time to where it becomes less of a factor when you're interacting with this stuff.
And y'all not gonna talk about how most of the time you know more than they do, and they have no idea what you're talking about anyway. I mean,
I have a great experience with that here. So I think I may have mentioned it early in the chat that early on in my career, I had started off and I noticed that, through conversation with people, because, Black people talk. So, and we, word gets around about, how much people make and stuff like that. And I noticed that this one particular person made 50K more than me. And I couldn't understand why. I thought it was because, because they knew more than me. They would have the experience. But, as you begin to talk to that person and talk to them with that technical acumen, and you realize that, this person does not know shit, that really irritated me. Like, man, what am I doing wrong where I'm making 50K less than someone? Then that came up on the topic about, did you negotiate your salary? Right? Did you really look into these things here? Did you just accept what they want from you? So that was the changing point for me. Say, hey, a lot of people really don't know, what they say they know, right? Until you really get tested, you really don't know that. So you really got to be able to really be battle tested and really understand that, hey, no one can take away from you what you know, as Paul was saying, but you got to really be able to back that up.
Yep. I think, Wayne, you said this earlier about that fact, that's why talking about money is important. That's why talking about salary is important, and with folks that have been there and know what you should be getting paid and what your worth really is based off of your credentials. Because all of us can look at somebody's profile, look at somebody's credentials and say, oh yeah, you should be getting paid X, Y, and Z. And if you come back telling me you're getting paid 50K less than what you should be getting paid, our antennas are gonna go up and we're gonna have a conversation with you. So I mean, I think that's all about this community that we're building. What this panel is all about is being able to have people you can reach out to and say, does this look right? Is this something that you think is accurate? But yeah, it's important, Wayne. Absolutely.
One thing I was going to add that helped me personally with imposter syndrome, and of course I'm on the technical side, but once I started blogging, and that took me a step just to even start there, because I felt like, well, what do I have to offer that somebody else hasn't already talked about in the tech space and tech companies, right? But I made a decision. I'm going to start blogging, even if it only helps me, like of the thought process I went through to try to figure something out, or the mistakes I made and what did work and what didn't work. Just real simple stuff. As I started getting a blog out and I started getting more of a public presence. And what I found is a lot of, over time, some of the guys who were trying to do the gatekeeping against me were actually the ones who were referencing my blog posts. Which is crazy, So for me, just getting that public presence and starting somewhere really helps give you that additional level of swag and confidence when you put your resume out there and you come into an interview, because now you have proven content that they can't deny, that's publicly available, of your thought process and the work you've done. So just a suggestion as well.
I just want to say one thing. I know we're completely over. We've been talking about salary. We've been talking about, like, just know where you are. I really want to be real honest here. When you're coming in and you don't really have you're coming in entry level, stop trying to make six figures coming in entry level. We keep telling y'all to get y'all coins, and then y'all come up here and y'all try to get real coins and don't really have what it is. You need to talk to someone, reach out, and let us level set, right? Let us help you level set so you don't go out there and then you start saying stuff like there are gatekeepers, because sometimes it's not really gatekeepers. Sometimes y'all just, sometimes we just expect more because we think that just because we're Black, we should get an extra 50,000. So I think that we really need to start talking to each other and help them really understand what entry level really means.
Yeah, and just to add to the activity, you know, we really need to make sure people are aware of the different salary ranges in the area that you live. You know, because that was something that I had to had to understand. That wait a minute, my salary is going to be different if I lived here in Atlanta or if I lived here in Baltimore, right? It's going to be different. You know, so the cost of living, all those things play a factor into, you know, how a company perceives your role to be as it relates to the entry. So those are some of the things that people want to be able to take a look at and be aware of. But yes, she's absolutely right. You know, don't expect six figures when you just have a bachelor's degree but no real experience.
Y'all are so bomb. I really appreciate all of, you know, the knowledge and the gems that y'all have dropped throughout this whole panel. But I don't want to keep anyone longer. I also want to drink because I'm in Atlantic City. And so I want to cut us here and really say just thank you for being on, sharing your knowledge with me and with the attendees here as well. And go forth and prosper. Your LinkedIns are probably going to be blowing up. So I just want y'all to just remember that. Y'all put that out there, but y'all know what y'all getting into. Y'all been at this for a while. So
hit me up.
Definitely.
Yes, yes.
You guys see, everyone sees that they are here. We are here. They are here for us. Reach out to them. And let's go forth and prosper, everyone. So I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Enjoy your Saturdays, and I will be in touch with everyone here soon. Excellent. Talk to you guys later. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Try to continue to be excellent. Take care.